Well, happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there in the US. We, of course, here in the UK are not doing Thanksgiving, but we know you guys are up to your armpits in turkeys and stuff like that. This is Paul English Live on Thanksgiving Thursday, the 28th of November, 2024, and we'll be with you here on WBN for the next couple of hours, maybe a bit longer elsewhere. Welcome to the show. And it's warmed up a bit round these here parts, although it was a bit brisk earlier today as I took my afternoon stroll down by the sea and got my knees a bit cold in the bright, brisk weather. Lovely day here. Hopefully we'll have a lovely evening too. And although it's a time of peace and happiness and Thanksgiving in the States, over here in the UK, it's just a time of ever-escalating madness. Yeah, madness will do for starters. It really is. Oh, I'd forgotten that the music fades out like that. And before we kick off and get into all the show, just to let you know, for WBN listeners, these shows are for people aged 18 and above. I say this each week because I'm asked to say each week, and it's true, of course. We get into very fruity language. We don't, actually. We're pretty civilized around here. But just to let you know, by way of meeting regulators' requirements and this, that, and the other, you must be 18 years and above to listen to all this salty language that we're about to come up with, or to listen to English people. And if you're not, well, you've got to turn everything off and go and do something else. And we're watching you. We know exactly what's going on. But I hope you've had a cracking week. I've had a very, very busy week. Thanks to lots of other people who arranged things for me, which was really good. After the show last week, David Griffin, who's a regular listener here and sends me messages quite regularly on Telegram and elsewhere, had got in touch with me in the previous week. You probably remember a couple of shows ago, I mentioned the letter from Hermann Göring to Winston Churchill a few hours possibly before Göring took his life in that cell at Nuremberg. And this led to a series of events, and David was kind enough to contact Jeff Rents, who many of you probably will know. And I was able to finagle my way in. Actually, David had cleared the way, so thank you very much once more again for that, David. And I ended up having a fun time at 4 o'clock Saturday morning, 4 a.m. UK time. Thinking that would be quite a challenge, but it wasn't too bad, actually. I've got odd little sleeping habits anyway. I seem to wake up at 4 o'clock all the time these days. I'll go to bed about 11. Well, not tonight, of course, because we're up all night. But after about 4 or 5 hours, I just keep waking up anyway. So it kind of fitted pretty well. And it turned out, and I mentioned this on the recording, which you can find of this hour. I was on the final hour of Jeff's show. See, I'm calling him by his first name now. So you can see that things are really moving on. But I was on for the last hour of his show, and I was quite bright and breezy but at that time. It worked out quite well. And it turns out that I'd been on, I didn't realise this at first, but I'd been on with him back in 2019. Not as a Billy No Mates session, but I'm pretty sure it was alongside Tom Goodrich, the author of Hellstorm. Because that time, it must be around about that time, the audiobook of Hellstorm had just been released or re-released because it was picked up by Money Tree Publishing, or has been handled by moneytreepublishing.com and is still handled by them to this day. And so Jeff kind of remembered me a little bit, and we kind of touched upon that in the show. Anyway, it's easy to be relaxed, I found, at 4 o'clock in the morning. I got up about an hour before it and decided not to have tea or coffee in the middle of the night. It would have made me slightly rabid and a bit wired up for the rest of the day. I didn't want to do that. But it was great fun. And the hour just flew by. And fingers crossed, hopefully I'll be doing a few more things there with him, because there's a lot of sort of synergies in terms of viewpoints and looking at different aspects. I think not just of that period of history, although as listeners here will know, and this show, by the way, on WBN is dubbed as the dark side of history. I'll have to get one of those echo things for that one day. And of course, we do touch on the dark side of history quite a bit, I suppose. I'm often referring, certainly this first year and a bit of this show, to the French Revolution and things like that. And other of these sorts of really calamitous moments, particularly over the last 500 or 600 years. Simply because there's so much to be learned in these points of conflict. The whole can of worms gets displayed, and once a kind of patterning effect is seen, it makes it more understandable with regards to the ridiculous times that we're going through right now. As I've mentioned here before, if we get going with the adjectives to describe what's taking place, we're going to run out of them, because it's as if we can't find the words to describe the sheer level of mental instability. See, even that doesn't sound good enough, does it? The mental but we'll stick with that for now. The mental instability that is running rampant through the political class, the media, the banking systems, the supranational world governments, of course. It's all according to their little plan of demoralizing and destroying and chewing up all the differences between nations and homogenizing them into a great big sort of blobby mass of silliness and this, that, and the other. And so all of those topics, everything that links in, comes into, I guess, really the dark side of history. I had we can even touch upon this here. So that was, sorry, now, you see, I'm getting scrambled a little bit. So that was Saturday morning. And then on Sunday just gone, I was back on with Ria Bow on Sunday Long Live Radio here on WBN, which runs UK time 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., which is 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. US Eastern time. So it's a pretty early start for Sunday morning risers, but there is predominantly, I think it majors on a US audience in many ways. And I was back there this Sunday, and possibly in a fortnight's time as well. So it's all a little bit fluid, let's put it that way, but it's good. And it was good to be back again after only a 2-week break. Anyway, during that show, I don't know how we got round to it, actually, because I don't go back and listen to these things. But during that show, I ended up talking about a book, and I've mentioned it here before, called Rulers of Evil. It has to be said like that, by the way. You can put pantomime makeup on and cackle a lot if you want to. Rulers of Evil are by a gentleman with the name of Tupper Saucy. And it is an amazing book. And because I don't know quite how we got around it, but because I mentioned it on the show, I've spent a bit of time this week going back over it. I've got it on PDF, and if anybody wants it on PDF, I'm sure if you're in the Rumble chat, and shout out to everybody in the Rumble chat, we'll be watching things. I'm not looking at the moment because I'm just sort of looking at a few little things, getting my feet under the table here. But I'm sure we'll be able to get a link to the PDF document of that. And anyway, it sparked me off because it's a few years since I'd read it, and I thought, it would be wonderful to do it as an audiobook. And then I found out who the publisher is. It probably wouldn't be good to do it as an audiobook. But there's quite a backstory to the book itself. So Saucy basically went on the run from the IRS. This is the gist of it. He didn't see why he should be liable to pay income tax and was arraigned in a court and was absolutely confident that they would, find him completely innocent. And they didn't, and he didn't like this. So he then spent the next, I think it's well over 10 years, bouncing around America in public libraries and archives and elsewhere, getting to grips with what it was, the force that had come against him. And the outcome of all his research is this book called Rulers of Evil. And I just wanted to read you a bit from some of the introduction to get you give you a little flavour of it if you've never seen it, because it is quite a book. This is from the preface. And who wrote the preface? Because his preface isn't introductions. Somebody called Pat Shannon. Okay, now the book came out in 1999, so we're talking about 25 years ago. I can't believe I'm talking about things this far back. It's weird. Who was journalist at large for Media Bypass at the time. Maybe they still exist. I don't know. Let me just read you a few of his little notes. It gives you a little feeling about things. He said, where was this little bit I was going to read you? He says, the only people in the world, it seems, who believe in the conspiracy theory of history are those of us who have studied it. Hello, listeners out there. While Franklin D. Roosevelt might have exaggerated when he said nothing happens in politics by accident, if it happens, it was planned that way, Carroll Quigley, Bill Clinton's favourite professor at Georgetown University, boldly admitted in his Tragedy and Hope 1966 that A, the multitudes were already under the control of a small but powerful group bent on world domination, and B, Quigley ought to know because Quigley himself was a part of that group and broadly agreed with their goals and aims. And he goes on to say, hang on just a minute, there's another bit. So that's Pat Shannon. I just wanted to mention that little bit. The next bit is another foreword by somebody else, another person. Let me just find out who it is before I just read their little bits. This is from Peter Fleming, the Peter Fleming Agency. The introduction is great. He said, blah, 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 blah. During last spring's book expo in Los Angeles, so I guess he's writing 98, 99, just before the book came out, I agently introduced my client, Tupper Saucy, to one of New York's most unshockable publishing executives. As Tupper articulately summarized rulers of evil for him, I personally witnessed the brow of this fearless executive develop a twitch. I saw him actually gulp. With my own ears, I heard him say, "This is a little too extreme for us." He says, the twitch developed as Tupper was saying, the Roman Catholic Church really does run the world, including the United States government, and this is openly declared in monuments and emblems and insignia, as well as official documents. By the time Tupper calmly reached his payoff, and this is good because it's divinely ordained, the exec was staring into space. It's an amazing book if you're not aware of it fully. I'm going to urge you to try and read it. And another quote here from Fleming, he says, and this is just as a little forewarning to those of you who want to try and read it. I'm going to say something else in a second as well. He goes on, he says, but don't expect to breeze. Parts of the book are so rich in historical detail that your brain might feel overburdened. Now, that's not hyperbole. I can, from personal experience, let you know that this is the case. You can read 2 pages of this stuff and it'll put your head in a mind lock for a week. It's extreme. It's like concentrated orange juice on steroids. It's an amazing stuff. He says, when that happens, just flip to more readable parts. I would advise also. Anyway, by way of just wrapping up this little introductory bit, a personal anecdote as well about the book. I'm obviously referencing in PDF form, and you can, I think, get hold of copies cheekily and freely and quite easily on the internet these days, and you should. You might want to think about buying a physical copy. And I have a physical copy, but I've lent it out in the course of the last 6 or 7 years to 3 people. None of them could finish the book. And they're not particularly dense people or anything like that. They just couldn't finish it. They found it just too much hard going. So there you go, eh? There's a feather in your cap if you can actually read this damn thing. So I knew where the copy was. I thought, oh, I won't pester the guy. I'll go and buy another copy. So I went and did a quick search. Imagine my surprise when I found that the cheapest price that I could pay to get hold of a copy of this book was £598. And then I found another outlet that was selling it at £1,280. You've seen these things probably, but that was about as cheap as it went, 598 quid. So I contacted the friend who's got it and had a slightly nervous conversation with him saying, do you still have that book? Yes. And have you kept it in good condition? The dog didn't get anywhere near it. He said, oh, no, it's fine. I said, good. He said, why do you want it? And I told him, he said, oh, you probably want to meet up then. I said, Yes, I think we should possibly and probably do that. So there we go. Anyway, that's by way of my long-winded introduction on a topic not necessarily concerned with Thanksgiving, but we can delve back into that book and what it covers as well. But I'm joined, as usual, and wonderfully, by Eric von Essex here on the English side. And we've actually... Evening, Eric. How are you this evening?
Oh, mustn't grumble, as they say. I'll tell you something, it's so cold outside. I think there's dogs frozen on a lamppost. It really is cold, but it's going to get warmer over the weekend. But I had a lovely morning this morning. I met John Hamer, author John Hamer, and his new wife. He's up this way, and we had a nice coffee and cup of tea together. And he's very interested in the show. So there we are. You've got one more listener.
Fabulous. Well, that's wonderful. I know John, when he was on your show recently, a couple of months ago, he wasn't at that time an honourable man. He'd not made an honest woman of her, had he? At that time.
That's right.
That's right. So he's done the manly deed. Well done, John, even though we don't know each other personally as yet. And he did threaten that when I go up north, he would buy me fish and chips somewhere outside Whitby or Scarborough. It's not Scarborough. What's it called again?
Scarbados.
Scarbados.
It's a province of Fockham. Yes, right. Yes, and it's sunny Scarbados, and he's very keen to come on the show.
Well, that's
show, or my show, or your show. I don't mind any show.
No, it's good. I'd like to get him on here at some point, but I'm whatever. It doesn't matter. It's a fluid arrangement. We just get conversations out there in any format and at any time works for everybody, and I'm completely cool with that, Eric. So whatever works. Yeah, he's a prolific writer, written a lot of stuff. I'm pretty familiar with all of the topics that he's written. I haven't read his books. Of course, he'll be furious with me about that. I'm still stuck on page 32 of Rulers of Evil because it's that hard to read. But and by the way, just hopping back, I don't know if you caught that little intro, but Herodotus get Fucht says, surely Tupper Saucy is a carry-on name. I know it ought to be Herodotus, but it isn't. He's actually a Huguenot. And if you don't know who the Huguenots are, there's another good bit of history because it's all pivotal in all this sort of melee, particularly over the last 1,000 years. But Catherine de' Medici waged a war against the Huguenots. And much of this is to do with Gutenberg creating movable type and people being able to read things and then suddenly finding out that many of the things that the church was saying it could do, there was no scriptural authority to do any of these things. And of course, a state of much agitation grew up amongst the people and lots of bloodshed, regrettably. Particularly here in England with the so-called Reformation, which popped up a little bit after that. But yeah, amazing guy. Could play piano apparently to concert-level standards. Wonderfully articulate in his writing, but as I said, brace yourself because it's absolutely packed with amazing information. Although some of it is probably dated a little bit. I think those people, you will read some of the characters at the beginning, got John Kerry down as a Catholic, and people that have inquired to this know that he's really a converso. He's actually Jewish, he's John Kerry. Probably, I shouldn't say masquerading as a Catholic, maybe he is a genuine Catholic, but it's just to let you know, it's important to know these details. And the whole of the Jesuit order, of course, was set up by a converso, Ignatius Loyola. And you'll find a lot of information in this book about that. Now, maybe you think you've got to be a specialist or to be exceptionally keen about this. I don't know if you do, but if you are fascinated by, as I obviously am, some of the underpinning, the foundation points about how things have gone so pear-shaped, I think you'll find that book a bit of a blast, and that's putting it mildly. It's, I would say it's almost... it should be in everybody's library, even if you don't get round to reading it. Just get a PDF and get into that in that way. Right. Anyway, Eric, great. Welcome to the show. I look forward to doing a thing with you and John, and that would be good. So keep and we will promote it here when we know when we're going to do it. Have you any idea when that's likely to come up?
It'll probably be in January. He'd also like to speak to Dennis as well, so that's not bad, is it? So because we was talking about naughty things in the cafe.
You were
naughty things that you're not. Well, we were that we're not allowed to talk about on YouTube. Maybe not even on Rum.
What naughty things were? Can you even tell me?
History.
Can you naughty things from history? Were you?
naughty things from modern history about things that are supposed to have happened where the calculations don't quite add up,
I have
and
no
you're
idea what you're talking about, but it
put
sounds
into jail if you question it. I
sounds
think the book has,
fascinating.
well, yeah, it, it, it is, isn't it? Yes, we all have to speak in code, you see, but shall we say, how can I put it? People have served time for questioning it. So it's very dangerous to talk about.
Yeah,
So my attitude is truth does not need any form of censorship. Only lies do. So it shoots itself in the foot.
I tend to. I think in an honourable world where people like us were possibly at the helm of the power centres, I would agree with you in practice. But I think in practice these days, it seems to be that that's not the case. It seems to be the case that truth is no defence has now become a kind of underhand law. Everything is. I mean, the whole situation here, with everything being in a reverso world, is obviously by design, don't you think, Eric?
I agree, but the thing is, if you stifle something up, it becomes like a volcano and you get a magma chamber and it goes up and up and up and up. And when it does erupt, bang, doesn't it go? And this is
Hmm.
what these stupid idiots don't realize. You cannot stifle people's views and thoughts. You can brainwash them, yes, but you can't stifle them. And historically, whenever they've been stifled, there's been like a volcano and they're actually digging their own graves. So, what we learn from history is we don't learn from history. And then that is those in power, especially, they don't learn from history. So they're actually metaphorically shooting themselves in the foot because you can't stifle people. It never works.
Yeah.
Um,
They seem
so
to be.
I'm
I
optimistic.
mean, I guess I've got a slight paranoia going on. I'm not normally. Well, I am. I suppose
Mm.
I am slightly paranoid, but I've got a slight odd feeling about this time round, and it's something to do with the technology. Now, either I'm a baby and can't think straight, which is possible, or there is something in it. I was reading something the other day, a post, I think, again, whoever posted it on the Telegram chat for this, with regards to the development of AI. Now, AI is obviously this catch-all term for a self-learning system, and I accept that some of that's going on. Whether there's really genuine intelligence, i.e., it's just basically like a souped-up tape recorder. It's just a souped-up file crossing system, but it's so souped up that it actually takes on the appearance of intelligence or can mimic it so well. And the post was talking about an environment that's been built for AI. That's a real world environment so that AI can go into this environment and learn real world things about 1,000 times faster than if you were to actually put it in the real world. In other words, the environments for teaching AI are being created by AI, and you go AI. I've got to stop saying
AI, hey up.
AI up.
Oh,
So on the internet they have AI, but up north we have A up, and it's A up that we're looking for. So, but it is a concern because they seem to be. Well, I don't know. I don't know what the options are. I think actually the thing that is the most scary is the fact that they're thick. And when I may use the word they, I'm referring to the vast mass of politicians and currently so-called frontmen and media journalists. They're thick because they're on autopilot. They've been going down this track for so long. They don't see that we're not really paying attention to what they're saying anymore. But they've got such momentum in what they're doing that they're unlikely to ever, I think, become aware of that. There's that aspect. But the other bit, Eric, that concerns me is that maybe they have. You see, it's been very relatively for us here in the West, even though it's mad now, it's been absolutely peaceful, really, for most of us since 1945, in real terms. I'm very lucky to have been born in the year that I got born in. I didn't have to go into war. I haven't shot or killed anybody. No one shot or tried to kill me yet. And I've got 6 decades under my belt, and some people have got even more. And so the post-war generation in Western Europe, has had a pretty pleasant sort of life, actually, even though we've got a lot of things specifically that we can focus on that are fundamentally flawed. And it's as if they've been waiting an awful long time to get all their ducks lined up in a row. And that's what keeps running around in my head. Like, all the things that they're doing they're doing all this stuff with the farms. Oh God, they're doing things with everything, right? They're doing things with the farms. They're doing things with car advertising. We were talking about it last week with Jaguar. They're mucking about with the economy. There's nothing they're mucking about with the weather. The news is being massively mucked about with. Everything seems to be sort of on steroids and ramped up all at the same time. I'm sure everybody here is beginning to notice that, or has noticed it for quite a few years now. It's going through a sort of period of massive escalation of confusion. And it seems to me that they may have that they've got their game plan, and it would appear that maybe part of it, and I know I'm sounding like, Mr. really super paranoid with this, is that they've got it all figured out to replace us completely with self-learning machines. Because, and I'm just guessing desperately and stupidly here, but we've talked about it here, haven't we? That in those labs, like the Fockham Hall Research Laboratory, you'll be slightly familiar with those, of course, down in the Fockham Hall Research Lab. They've got things going on down there that the peasants, us lot out here, have got no idea about. They're probably 50, 60 years ahead of what we're actually seeing in the public space, and have got way more capacity for, what would you call it, micromanagement and control of society, which obviously seems to be their shtick. So I'm just, I'm guessing here in a way. And the other thing that leads me to think that something's not right is that the economic model is not right. It's just, there's just money available without any effects. That I think now we're actually we're under communism with the appearance, the veneer of capitalism, but in fact it's almost as if everything is state controlled. You're supposed to think that state is the government one, but it isn't. It's this deep state controlled sort of situation, and it's probably far more mature, I'm guessing, than even we are seeing from all the alternative information spaces that we look at. Well, I have come in quite dark today, haven't I?
No, but I mean, well, that's right. I mean, there's a big difference between capitalism and free enterprise. Henry Ford was into free enterprise. I'm into free enterprise, but I'm not into capitalism, because the ultimate objective of capitalism is communism. Some of the biggest capitalist countries in the world, I believe, look at North Korea, for example. It's run by a handful of families and a handful of capitalists, where they've got the people as slaves, believing a load of nonsense. And that is what communism is actually about, to destroy your opposition so you make all the decisions. I mean, I was walking around a very large supermarket today, as you do, and I thought, hang on, there's something new put there, because around the sides of the supermarket they have like these little shops. They've got a load of old cobblers there making, repairing shoes and that sort of stuff, and they got a barber's there, and not a Turkish one, I hasten to add. And then I saw, what was it now? I can't remember the exact word, but next to the pharmacy, or the legalized drug pushers, they had like a waiting room for, it says keeping local community healthy. I thought, well, I very much doubt it. And it says, see a virtual doctor. You can make an appointment to see a virtual doctor. You can have your arms squirted with a load of toxins if you wish. If you're a woman, you speak about menopausal issues, pregnancy, and all the sort of standard things that can clean your earwax out, all kinds of stuff like that. But what got me, you can see a virtual doctor. What is a virtual doctor?
Well, I think why don't you go in and find out?
Because I try and keep as far away from the NHS as humanly possible.
Very wise.
Yes, to me, give me natural medicine any day, which has actually cured me of a lot of things, not the NHS. And when, of course, the party comes to that, well, it won't come to power, that could never be elected, the NHS will become totally natural, with only using pharmaceutical stuff if it's proven to work, which
the Natural Health Service.
The Natural Health Service, as similar to the one that was set up in 1933 in Germany, which looked on health and the whole body instead of just bits of the body. So, I mean, that's the most logical thing.
It
If
is.
you go and see a Chinese doctor, I haven't, but I've worked with a bloke who had. He said he sits there for an hour talking to you. He doesn't examine you. He talks to you, talks about your lifestyle, wants to know your diet, and everything like that. And then he can make a diagnosis. But they don't even have to touch you. They don't even have to look at you. You know, that is the most amazing thing. And this is why I think a lot of the NHS is full of pervs, like touching people up.
Well,
Go,
that's a good segue. That's excellent. Yeah, well, I think it is, but there's lots of reasons. But anyway, let's just put that on hold for a second, and let's welcome aboard. Now, Patrick has kindly taken time out from ploughing his way through X pounds of turkey, mashed potatoes, and all the trimmings, or whatever he's doing. But Patrick, are you having a cracking Thanksgiving Thursday?
Oh yeah, I'm eating from my plate while I'm listening to you two go on. It's great.
Wow,
good food
so
here.
We're audio, and we're not giving you indigestion or anything like that. That's good.
No, you're helping my digestion, I think.
Well, that's good. You've been very quiet. So, is it very quiet across the states as a whole today? Everybody just basically getting.
I think so. Everybody's not working. That's good. Any day where everybody quits working and just goes and stays with their family, I think that's a good day.
Mm-hmm.
At least most people. Some of these places, like I went to the dollar store today, and they had a couple people working, and I kind of felt pity for them. But they're like, "Oh no, we're gonna have a celebration tomorrow with our family instead." So,
oh, that's cool.
It's good. All my family's here, most of my family anyway. Lots of good treats and dishes, turkey, big old turkey, fun stuff.
And Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving.
Christmas, I suppose.
Yeah, it's like Christmas. It's like first Christmas.
You sort of celebrate.
Yeah. Well, here in the Shire, it's our first Christmas.
Yeah, and they have a second Christmas. They have a second here in the Shire. You see, they have a second Christmas, Eric. Yeah. That's what's going on. Yeah. Do you have turkey again then at Christmas, Patrick?
You know, this country shuts down for 2 weeks over Christmas.
Does it? See, I wish it did. Most of the schools shut down for 2 weeks and let the school children out. But as far as like normal day-to-day jobs, most people work most of it. A lot of people take off and have 5-day, 4-day weekends. It's quite good. Yeah, I'm happy. It's just glad to be alive after being sick Christmas, for a week.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Eric, go ahead.
Do you actually shut down over Christmas? I mean, do you sort of like we have Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, Boxing Day, and then we go for about a week, and then we have New Year's Eve, New Year's Day.
It's somewhat. Yeah, it's similar here. You know, there might be some days in between or just after that people do work, but most people just shut down and they celebrate with family. They go to visit family if they're at a distance. They go and travel, and it's quite nice. And since we're such a big country, you know, you do a lot of traveling from one state to the next.
You guys, you always have to do things bigger than we do. You see, we have one Christmas,
well, it's only out of
you have to have two.
It's out of
you have to have two, right? I mean, it's just
you sent those Puritans here. That set it off. So
good riddance, bloody Puritans.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, go on,
it's actually the last Sunday was the feast. Since I'm Catholic, it's the feast of Christ, the King of the universe. So it's the last liturgical day, last liturgical week of the year, and then it begins on December 1st, and that's Advent, and then it begins Christmas. So, yeah, it's Thanksgiving. It's always been in reference to God, at least from the beginning, from what I understand, and even when Lincoln inaugurated it back in the day. So it's a good thing. I don't, these secular holidays. This is one secular holiday that I can get behind and be happy about because it's like, why not? You look at look for the good things in them. And you just like, I'm glad to be alive. Like I said, I was sick all last week in bed, bedridden. That was no fun. It's like I got time off of work, but I'm sitting sick in bed. It's like I want to enjoy myself if I'm going to have a vacation. But now I'm doing okay. I got a little bit of a cough. Other than that, I'm just glad to be alive. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, me too. In spite of everything, I am regularly like that. And I didn't know, obviously, whether we would be able to find you today. So it's great to have you. But also, I didn't know whether we would have Paul here today. And he appears to be here, although maybe he's on mute and eating turkey as well. So, Paul,
There
hi.
he is.
Hi.
No, I appear to be here, but there's no guarantees that I'm actually here.
You sound so relaxed, Paul, as if you've eaten a lot of turkey already, and that chemical that's in the turkey that makes you fall asleep is really beginning to work.
Actually, no, my energy level is crashing because the only thing I've had to eat today is a cold fast food hamburger that was in my refrigerator.
Well, this is very, very depressing.
I don't have the energy. I don't have the
Patrick,
energy.
send him some turkey now, quick.
I know, yeah. I wish I had a teleporting machine. I'd send
You've
you
got to
a
get your
whole
energy
load
up,
of
Paul.
it.
You can't come in here half asleep just
Yeah.
because you've only had a cheeseburger. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's total nonsense. We can't have that. Have you got any beer? Go get something. Come on.
Actually, it's not even that good. It wasn't a cheeseburger. It was just a hamburger.
I just had 2 cheeseburgers for supper tonight. And I'm always reminded of the mightiness of the cow, realizing that none of this would take place. I would have no burger and no cheese without the mighty cow. Right. Okay, so I'm sorry to. Anyway, I feel full of burgers.
Yeah,
we know what
but
Bill
in
Gates
America,
doing to them.
We do know what Bill Gates is doing to them, yes.
Yes,
in America, we have the mighty cow. Sorry, Eric. In America, we have the mighty cow for the patty, but we have the mighty petrol for the cheese, because that ain't cheese. I'm just saying.
It ain't cheese. What kind of cheese you had on there? American cheese.
Yeah, American cheese ain't cheese. It just ain't.
No, actually, somebody sent through on the Telegram group. Good. I found who I was looking for. I want to read you a poem. I don't really want to, but I'm going to. You probably don't even want a cheese poem. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
This came from Lorne S. Shout out to Lorne S., who I think is, if he's in the States or she's in the States, it's difficult. Lorne. Is that a guy's name or a girl's name? Look at me, not knowing. I don't know.
If you're Lauren Green, it's a guy's name.
That's right. Okay, so I don't want to misgender someone. Heaven forbid.
No,
we like to be politically correct around here once every 348 years, and that was it.
Right.
So,
Lorne is Lauren.
Yeah.
That's male. Loren is Loren, and that is female.
Oh, I love having all these dictionary types around in the show. Brilliant, Paul. Okay. Anyway, let me read you this poem. It's only 3 verses. It has a cheesy theme. It's called Brie Encounter. And you really need to see it, but you're just going to have to hear it. The skies are Gruyere since she left me. I've never felt so Danish blue. Caught between a Roquefort and a hard cheese. I Stilton don't know what to do. Don't give Edam about the future. Now my baby bells walked out the door. Can't believe I've double Gloucester. I camembert it anymore. I really like that one. I'm going to read that again. Last verse. I've ricotta get myself together and build my life back carefully. Cheddar tear for the final time. Say goodbye to us and halloumi. But that was good. I like that. 3 verses. It's called Brie Encounter. And thank you, Lorne S., for that. That was really good. Particularly that middle verse. Don't give Edam about the future. Now my baby bells walked out the door. Can't believe I've double Gloucester. I camembert it anymore. Yes. And that's why you tune into this show for things like that, because that's great. That's brilliant. I love it. So there we go.
They say the best cheese is government cheese.
Who says that? And what is that?
I don't know. That's just the saying.
Is it really?
Yeah.
It is. Well, Cheese is important, I think. Our house tends to run on cheese. I think I've been eating cheese my entire life. But as I've said before, it's just not what it used to be. Is it, Eric? Should we all grumble like old men? But it bloody well
it
isn't.
But you can make your own out of raw milk very easily. And all you do is you mix, I think it's I'm just doing this from memory. I think it's 1.5 liters.
Yeah.
You add a couple of tea or tablespoonfuls. You better look this recipe up on the internet of apple cider vinegar to it. And that's basically how you make it. And it's just with that apple cider vinegar. And
it makes it turn to curd.
It makes it, and that's right. And you can use the whey for all kinds of stuff. That's a liquid that comes off.
They throw it on the roads here in the winter. They take the whey and they mix it with saline and spray it on the roads to prevent ice buildup on the roads. That's how how much cheese we make here in the great state of Wisconsin.
Wow,
that's a lot of cheese.
Wow, that's a bit cheesy, isn't it?
It's a bit cheesy.
It is.
Does it have some kind of a pungent odor in the winter months?
Yeah,
does the whole of Wisconsin take on a particular aroma because of all the whey?
I can't think. Hard time pinning down what the smell is. I don't think I've ever had the windows down during that time. Maybe.
Wow,
but
that's a lot of whey. Yeah,
it is.
Yes.
The whey.
Do you have Philadelphia cream cheese there?
Yes.
Or is that something you do?
Yes, we do. Good. Yeah, it's nice. Yeah. That's the thing that usually goes with smoked salmon in a bagel, isn't that right, Eric? If you do that sort of thing.
Yes, that's right. Yes. But Philadelphia is very, very nice. But I'm going to try this doing your own cheese because it's so easy. And I went to the farm today and picked up 30 eggs for £10. Not bad, is it? And that is actually cheaper than the supermarkets.
We get them for about $4 here, $4 a dozen.
Yeah, this is for 30 eggs.
Yeah.
So
that's quite the deal.
Not bad. It's normally £2. Well, that works out about £2 for 6. So for a dozen, that'd be about £4, which would be about what, $6, $7, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be about it. But yeah, and got some nice Jersey milk, and it's funny, as I got out of the car, all the cows, they took a fancy to my car. I was herding around having a look at it, and they're behind a fence, of course. But I think they're near to milking because they looked as if they wanted a good milk. But it's a lovely farm, it really is. And of course, we're going to have to use those people more because they're going to put something in the feed of cows to stop them getting flatulence, to save the OMO, or whatever you want to call it.
Oh, really?
Have you heard that? Bill Gates?
Yeah, I've heard about the low carbon emissions. Yes, the feed that they're going to put them on, the starvation austerity diet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, there is that testimony that the cows actually don't fart. So now, I think that was what they were originally targeting. Now they're attacking the burp. Apparently it's the cow burp that's going to destroy civilization. Burping cows. The problem is that this stuff is just accepted, lock, stock. Yes, when I was thinking about the COVID thing, and I know, Eric, you mentioned recently, it's a phrase everybody, I guess, many people will be familiar with, this thing of mass psychosis, this getting a crowd to just go in one direction. Yes. And it's got to be the case that the COVID thing was a great research R&D event as well for them to see how far they could make people believe stupid things and doing things that would actually imperil their own life. And they were probably quite pleased with the results, really, because there are still people heavily committed to taking whatever comes out from the government is good for me. And they're thinking, blimey, So they're now getting people to believe that cows burping is going to kill us all and all this kind of stuff. And you're right, Gates is involved with flogging some garbage into farms. I've actually seen a tweet from a farm going into this over here saying, blah, 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 blah. You can rely on us. We're not going to be using any of that crap. But Gates basically needs to be arrested as a cow terrorist. He's waging a terroristic war on cows and the people that rely upon cows, which just happens to be everyone. So I mean, where's the people from McDonald's saying you can't attack our cows? Well, is this the case that McDonald's are not actually putting cow in their burgers? Is that what's going on as well? I don't know. Everybody's quiet.
It's
Well, I
very,
hope
very
not.
strange. Well, I hope not as well. But how are these liberals getting away with it? How do these people get away with it? It's just
The whole
how has
system's
Bill Gates got
controlled,
away
Eric.
with it?
All the power centers are lost. They've all been won over. All of them. They have to be. And the regular whip, I think, that's applied is, if you don't go along with this, you lose your job. And of course, they see how bad it's getting for everybody else, so they don't want to lose their jobs. So now the escalation of lies and disingenuousness and deceit and deception is just going on and on and on. In other words, many of the people that are delivering stuff to us, verbally or in a written way, politicians, media hacks and the like, are actually under the cosh. Whether they know it or not, they're probably even unconscious about it, but they've been conditioned themselves to act as a conduit for bilge, and they don't have any sort of self-awareness or critical faculties. I mean, maybe I'm giving them more credit than they're due. Maybe they're just downright evil, nasty people, and there certainly is a considerable part of them that are that way. But this is, there are no opposing voices. I can't remember how I heard it yesterday. Something in the US. No one's opposing certain things, but in the UK, there's nothing. There's nothing. What politicians are actually standing up and saying, are you all out of your mind? There's nothing wrong with cows, and we're not attacking farmers, and this government's out of order, and we need to kick you in the vitals.
Well,
why are they not
this
saying
is not new. But this is not new. I mean, look what happened at the beginning of the First World War. They called it war fever. That was an actual name for it, war fever.
Yeah.
Where men were falling over themselves to go and get killed, basically, in 1914, because the government made it look so fantastic. They wanted men to hurry up and go over there before it's all over. And they said it'd be over before Christmas. That's when it started was it the end of July, beginning of August, the First World War. And it was the same with the Second World War. And it's amazing. This is what I was talking about on another show, in that how Mr. H in the 1930s was the darling of the press one moment, and the next moment, literally overnight, he becomes an absolute demon. Overnight. And people went along with it. Now, this country had no gut for war because they've been through the First World War. And of course, unlike America, it was very close to home. They could actually, I think it was in Dover, they could hear the gun. No, not Dover. It's somewhere they could actually hear the gunfire of what was going on. So it was very, very close. And we'd had 4 years of it. And they said, no, there'll never be another war. And there's the Oxford Union that had a vote and said that they would not volunteer to go into a war for this country. What happened in 1939? They actually turned people's minds in a matter of weeks by using the media. Where
it's true.
They got people pro-war. Not everybody. And that is absolutely staggering. The propaganda this country pumped out was absolutely unbelievable how they did it.
It's also a victory in a way, Eric, I would suggest, for the so-called public school system, because it's conditioned people. It removes. I mean, if you think about it, the vast majority of people have no intellectual defense mechanisms against puke being poured into their head. If it's being poured into everybody else's head, it's accepted. They're looking around from the survival instinct, which is overpoweringly strong, completely understand it. It's being manipulated against them. There are no honourable leaders, and it's being abused. So, I've often thought that a primary defence mechanism that you have if you want to be in charge of your own brain and thinking is your willingness. It moves into an attitudinal thing then, to ask questions. And what does the public school system do? It reduces your willingness to do that. You are actively discouraged to not ask questions of the authority at the end of the room, the so-called teacher. And this is very gentle, but over however many years you're in that sort of thing, from 5 to 18 is it these days generally? It used to be 5 to 16, but it's 10, 12, whatever number of years is. You just pick it up as a habit. It's just a habit. And most people don't realize that they're not asking questions about anything. And I think it's the other thing as well with the so-called alternative media, is that there are lots of contexts in place in the alternative media, which means it needs to grow a bit or change a bit. For example, one of the ones I think that's taking place is there's still this appeal to authority to put it right. You see it in a lot of things. I mean, I've phrased things like this tonight. Why are they doing this and all this kind of stuff? Whereas, in fact, the truth is they're doing it because they're our enemy and they're not listening to us. And that we know that they're our enemy because they don't listen to us and they do things which they don't ask us to do and which we don't want doing, and they still go ahead and do them anyway, and they harm people. And recently they've killed people, literally, because of this vaccine baloney. And they all act as if they've not done anything wrong. So we have this, it's more than a communications problem. It is a war against their ideology. And it's not possible to get them to actually look at their own ideology fairly and to be self-critical, because they don't seem to have the capacity for self-criticism. They don't analyse themselves. It's everybody else's fault. It's the plebs for not doing it, and they've got to be slaughtered, and this, that, and the other. Blah, 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 blah.
The first thing that communists do when they get into power is go for the farmers.
Mm-hmm.
Look what's happening now. They're going for the farmers.
Yep.
Because the school system makes us want to look up to a leader, whereas farmers don't look necessarily for a leader because they have to be very responsible people to run a farm.
Yes.
You've got to have self-responsibility.
It's
whereas
a big
townies
thing.
Don't have that self-responsibility.
Yeah.
And they want everybody to be a townie. And this is the big difference. I think that, in Wisconsin, and I bet there's a lot of people that don't look up to a leader and are very irresponsible because there's a lot of farms there. But the more they take us out of the farms, the more we're going to have people. I mean, you go to any truth group, what are they doing? They're looking for a leader. If you want a leader, look in the mirror. That leader will be staring back at you.
Well, we've got to read. I mean, it might be just, maybe it's just too big a jump. Maybe, I'm not aware. I don't have results or reports on the long-term effects of being exposed to television, for example. But they do. They will know what the long-term effects of being exposed to television systems are like. And let's face it, you and I grew up with television. That's really what we did.
That's right.
Of course, it was Britain, so we only had 2 channels, which is good. And it didn't start broadcasting till 4 o'clock in the afternoon, so we at least had some of our own life left where we had to create our own entertainment. And now everything is created for everybody and conditioned down certain lines. And of course, we've got the onslaught of the mobile phone, a technology now which has overwhelmed the youth of the day. They're overwhelmed by it. I don't know how many hours a day they spend on their phones. But you see, the thing that I'm always aware of is that when I was 16, I didn't know anything much. That's why I sort of set off to try and find out some things. How much are you likely to find out from just sitting and swimming around in a sea of messages on chatbots and things like this? I just think not much. And of course, this does now mark us out as middle-aged fuddy-duddies, which I'm really glad about. I think it's really cool to be a middle-aged fuddy-duddy. We are the coolest guys on the planet. The people that think they're cool are actually the most tragic and the most lost generation. It's not their fault. I'm sort of keen to try and find a way. How do you correct it and turn it around? In what way do you do it? You can just encourage people to think for themselves. Paul, yes. Did you want to say something?
I don't think Paul's...
Oh, is it somebody else? Did I misidentify the voice? Was that you, Eric? Sorry.
No, it wasn't me. I'm sitting here,
I got a ghost in the machine or something then. Weird.
It wasn't me.
Yes.
Who was it? Sound like a teacher.
Well, the strange thing is, it's probably the same in the States and most of the Western world. I met John and his missus in a garden centre, and it's a bloody great garden centre. There's loads of, and they've got all these, excuse my language, crap from China, which they're selling. They're very highly priced. It's a massive place, and when you look at the people, they look as if most people look stressed, most people look completely and utterly miserable, and most people look scruffy, unbelievably scruffy.
Yeah.
You see people walking around in their tracksuits that look like pajamas. There was a woman who was pregnant that looks as if she was wearing her pajamas, all various stains all over it. Looks a complete state. She looks as if she just got out of bed. And do you remember, was it Harry Enfield when they had that couple that Fagay Shlil and whatever. It was like that, and you've got all this Christmassy music.
Wayne and Waynetta's
It's
slob,
so
wasn't it? Wasn't that Wayne and
That's it.
Waynetta?
No, that's right. Loads of Waynes and Waynettas walking around, and I was talking to John about it, and he said, "Well, you will come up north." He said it's similar up there because when you look at it, what's happened? People had self-respect, and what they've done, these social engineers, they've actually destroyed people's self-respect. Number one, and the second thing they've actually done is they've actually created even more and more stress all the time, unnecessary stress. When you park, I'm okay, I'm not on a yellow line, I'm not going to have to pay this, am I not going to have to pay that?
Yep.
Continuous stress all the time, and it's just gradually been ratcheted up very, very slowly, and quite honestly, I think it would take 2 to 3 generations if we stopped now. If we clicked our fingers, it stopped now. And I'm doing what Yuri Brezhnev said. It would take, I'd say, 2 to 3 generations to get back to some form of normalization. It really would. We can't do it overnight, but it would have to be a gradual process. And I think it'd have to be a gradual process with some form of government that gradually relinquishes power. But the trouble is, where there's government, there's usually a power vacuum, and where there's a power vacuum, there's psychopaths, and it'll go back
it's
to
a
the way
lack
it
of
was.
discipline.
Sorry, you was going to say, Patrick. Yes.
Yeah, it's a lack of discipline because you can discipline yourself not to look at your phone and that sort of thing. I know it's really hard because you get lost in like TikTok, short 30-second videos where it's like, ooh, look at that. Oh, wow, that's cool. It's just stimuli stress. You get too much of it, and it's just like in the time you should be resting, that's the time when you're just leisurely looking at your phone. It's like, well, that's the time you could just be laying back with your eyes closed and examining what you're going to do or what you've been doing that day, rather than distracting yourself. And that's the problem, is getting that discipline to do that. And it takes a real wad of courage to do that sort of thing too, I think, because most people, it's just easy to be lazy. That's why they wear the track suits. Around my house, I wear, kind of like a tracksuit type thing because it's like, oh, it's comfortable and I want to be comfortable. But it's at the same time, you don't get much done when you're just lazy like that. And and I do notice that too, the way people look. They look like slobs walking down. It's like, well, at least, I look at it, I go to church, and it's like at least one day out of the week I can dress up nice and look good for people. It's for other people that you're dressing. It's not so much yourself. I mean, but it is good for yourself to look that way and feel good. And
well, that's right.
Hey, I look pretty classy. I look sharp. Why not?
Do you find that when you got your suit on, people treat you very differently? I found that.
Yeah, they do.
Treat you with a bit more respect.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, you got your tweed on. You look sharp, and people take notice.
Not
and they think,
yeah.
No, of course not. Yeah, you just create a different atmosphere where people are like, oh, this guy's serious. This guy at least isn't. It's a matter of discipline, and that's what we lack.
Well, you're spot on there, because when you look at Mao's China, everybody wore denim. Men and women had to wear denim trousers. I don't know if you've seen any film of
delightful looking place, Eric. It's delightful.
Yes.
It's full of natural beauty and happy people, all looking exactly the same.
Before I forget this, I want to talk about China, because you were talking about Patrick Shannon earlier, James Patrick Shannon.
Pat Shannon. Yes, yeah.
Okay, I got a story about that. Anyway, go ahead, Eric. Sorry.
Well, before you go ahead, we're just at the top of the hour, so look, I think we can.
What I was going to say.
Yeah, go on, Eric. If you want to just get a word in, and then we'll do a little song as soon as you've said this little
very
bit.
Quickly, timed parking has caused more stress than anything else, because people used to park their car and relax, speak to friends. Now they can't relax because they're looking at their watch all the time, thinking, "Oh, I better get back to my car because the time's going to run out, and I'll be fined so many pounds or something." That is that. And that's the first thing that we're going to do when the government that cannot be elected, we're going to do is there will be no payment charges for parking. You can park wherever you want, free.
Even on the M25 at rush hour?
On the M25 at rush hour, yes. Have a picnic on the hard shoulder for a laugh.
You can't drive through. We're having a picnic, okay? So just stop getting cross. This is life now. We're living life. Absolutely. Well, everything's oriented to make you comply with systems because of economic efficiency. Remember that? We've got to be economically efficient. And, of course, we don't need to be economically efficient. Well, we do. We don't need to be wasteful either. But you're listening to Paul English Live here on WBN 324, here every Thursday. I'm here with Eric and Patrick and sometimes Paul when he's popping in. A little song for you. I heard this earlier today, actually. Patrick, you'll know this. It's one of yours. I came across it. And Eric, you were telling me you quite like some of the songs that go out on Radio Soapbox. I do too. They're the old sort of songs, many of which, of course, I've never heard before. Never heard any of them. And it's lovely hearing new stuff, even if you don't like it. I just go, ooh, I don't like that, but at least I'm glad I heard something new. This is called, it's very short. It's only about 2 minutes long. By a lady singer called Hildegard, with an E at the end, never heard of her before, called All of a Sudden My Heart Sings. The song is as sweet as that title would suggest. We'll run this for a couple of minutes. We'll be back after this.
All of a sudden my heart sings when I remember little things, the way you dance and hold me tight, the way you kiss and say good night, the crazy things we say and do, the fun it is to be with you, remembering all those little things. All of a sudden, my heart sings. The secret way you press my hand to show me that you understand. The wind and rain upon your face. The breathless world of your embrace. Your little laugh and half surprise, the starlight gleaming in your eyes, the magic thrill that's in your touch. Oh, darling, I love you so much. The secret way you press my hand to let me know you understand. The wind and rain upon your face, the breathless world of your embrace, your little laugh and half surprise, the starlight gleaming in your eyes, remembering all those little things. All of a sudden, my heart sings.
Attention all listeners. Are you seeking uninterrupted access to WBN 324 Talk Radio despite incoming censorship hurdles? Well, it's a breeze. Just grab and download Opera Browser, then type in WBN324.zil. And stay tuned for unfiltered discussions around the clock. That's WBN324.zil.
The views, opinions, and content of the show hosts and their guests appearing on the World Broadcasting Network are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of its owners, partners and other hosts or this network. Thank you for listening to WBN 324 Talk Radio.
And welcome back to Hour 2 here on WBN, Paul English Live, with our Thanksgiving show. Of course, most of our American listeners are away Thanksgiving, apart from a few reprobates here like Patrick and Paul. And I'm here with Eric, of course, in jolly old England, where we're all jolly, if not as old as some people make out that we are. So welcome back, gentlemen, to part 2. That song, of course, was ridiculously romantic and sweet, which is why I put it on. You don't hear things like that much anymore. I loved the lyrics. She's a very sweet-looking lady. She's called Hildegard, or was. I'm assuming she's probably left for pastures new by now, but that was from 1948. All of a sudden, my heart sings. They don't write them like that anymore now, do they, Eric?
No.
Or Patrick? They don't. No. No, they don't. So, yes.
It was quite good. You really don't hear people write that poetic type emotional song.
No,
lyrics.
kindly song.
Most lyrics.
Very sweet.
Kindly, gentle song.
Very sweet, kindly, gentle. The sorts of emotions that most of us actually value. Everything is to be pornographied. I mean, I know I'm coming across as sort of middle-aged fart by doing all these things, but I'm actually quite enjoying it, to be quite honest. It's not that I haven't listened to piles of rock music and stuff like that, and I still do from time to time, right? But it's great to get the different feeling. I guess I'm doing it because in part, these songs, that one in particular, reflect a quality in life that there is not sufficient of these days, and a sort of that sweet consideration for other people. So that's why I picked it, lads and lasses. I quite liked that one today. I thought it was quite nice. Eric, are you still with us, or are you not with us? Just trying to find out if he's there. He's showing that he's there, but I can't hear him.
I'm still with you. Yes, I'm still with you. I accidentally muted my microphone, so I've been talking to you, not realising that you can't hear me.
I thought the song had moved you so much that you'd run into the kitchen for the Kleenex and everything to dry your eyes. That's what I thought was really going on.
Yes. It was very moving, wasn't it? And unlike modern music, which is very bowel moving, I find.
Well, it's nice to bring the toilet into play. And Eric, thank you for doing that. That's tremendous. That's really good.
After an hour, it's not bad. I've been an hour without mentioning toilet humor.
Yeah, I'm absolutely amazed at the restraint that you've shown. That's probably a record.
When you had that Yorkshire lass on last show you did, Eric, about the constipated vicar, and I finally heard it.
The constipated vicar show, yes.
You can't tell it twice in under a week, Eric. You're not allowed. You're not licensed for that.
No, I wouldn't.
But I was at work when I heard it. I was at work when I heard it on the floor, working with all sorts of other people, and I just broke out in hysterics, and they're all looking at me like,
yeah.
But what I like is was it your top tips? So I think that's a top tip you gave was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I'll just find it. I think we can say this one again. We were after the show, so just to let you know, I did a show with. Was it on Monday? This Eric on your Fockham Hall on Monday?
Yes, Monday. Yeah,
it was Monday. So you were on with Deb from Leeds in Yorkshire, where I come from. So that was great. And she was talking about Temple. Yorkshire. She was talking about Temple Newsam, which I mentioned on your show. I grew up near. I used to play literally in the grounds of Temple Newsam, designed by, what's his name? Capability Brown. Quite capable lad, I guess, although there's all sorts of, conspiracy theories about this, that, and the other with him. But it's really quite a splendid place. It was always very quiet, actually, very big, but very quiet, not a big sort of tourist thing. But it was great to connect up with her. Anyway, after the show, we were talking about Viz comic. Were we talking about this last week as well? I don't know. You get on a theme, and it sort of runs through for a few weeks until you get out.
Yeah, I remember hearing you.
Anyway, we talked about last Monday. And
yes, Eric.
I was crying with laughter. And it hit my funny bone. That top tips. Top tips
I don't know. Anyway, there was quite a few. Yeah, so Viz used to have readers' letters, which are filthy, and we can't say them on air. It's for people way over the age of 18, and I don't want to upset anybody, particularly on such a sweet day. It's a little bit too vulgar. This is not overly vulgar, but it is really rather good. So this is one of the top tips that appeared once in, and if you probably don't know what it is, Patrick. In fact, nobody in America, I don't think it would have translated to America at all, but it began in the late 80s. No, it didn't. It began in the mid 80s, I think it was. VIZ. And what it was a pastiche of British comics. Now, British comics are not like American comics. American comics are like 22 pages of one story, Spider-Man or whatever it is, that kind of stuff. So they tell a full narrative. British comics are they've got about 20 different 2-page strips in them and quizzes and all sorts of other things, right? They've been targeted like that. The Beaner and the Dandy, yeah, and Topper and all these other things. Whizzer and Chips, which was a favourite of mine when I was about 8 and stuff like this, with all these cheeky lads and cheeky things from English sort of culture and all that kind of stuff. So it was a pastiche of that.
Lord Snooty?
Lord Snooty and his pals, yes. Lord Snooty and his pals. Quite like Lord Snooty. Right. Lord Snooty.
Oh, Desperate Dan was my favourite.
Yeah,
Texan. Desperate Dan.
Yeah, I do. He used to. His beard was so tough he could strike matches on it, couldn't he?
Pie.
He had cow pie with the horns coming out. He was great, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm. That's it, in a towel as well.
Yeah.
And when he got onto a bus, the old buses that you grab the handrail at the back, he was so big that the handrail would just come off with him, and he'd tear the back of the bus off. He's a big hunky Texan. What a hunky Texan in a cowboy hat was doing in, I think it was Glasgow. I do not know, but that's another question.
I know. Anyway, one of the tips was this. I'll read this one. This is one of the tips from that thing. It says this. This is a really good tip, everybody. When your meat paste jar is practically empty, when your meat paste jar is practically empty, get the dog to lick out any remaining contents and then scrape his tongue with a cracker for a tasty snack. There you go. Today's top tips.
I'm still eating it, Paul. Come on.
I tell you, Eric, if we had a dog, I'd have been doing that this week. There's no harm in that.
Oh, yes.
There's no harm in that. You'll be all right on that. Don't worry about that. You'll be fine. Don't worry. It's only a dog. What's that dog been eating? Oh, my God. Yeah.
Where's his nose been? Oh, dear.
Yeah, yes. I know. So we'll compile a lot of those, yes, I think, and we'll have to get more of them. And maybe I'll find a top tip every week for you, dear listeners out there. So remember, if you've got a dog, you've got any meat paste left over, just get the dog to lick it out, wipe his tongue with your cracker. Nice morning tasty snack. Lovely.
I bet you some people that do that as well.
Yeah, they would. They would.
I've never appreciated a fast food burger more in my life.
Yeah. You've never appreciated what?
A fast food hamburger more in my entire life.
Now that you've heard that. Oh, that's what the English get up to all the time. I came across this one as well today, Eric. This is it's not really a top tip. It's just a reader's anecdote. It says, tea is an evil substance. Because I was a bit shocked to read this. Tea is much more dangerous than beer. Please avoid drinking tea. I discovered this last night. I had drunk 14 pints of beer up until 3 o'clock in the morning at the pub, while my wife was just at home drinking tea. You should have seen how angry and violent she was when I got home. I was peaceful, silent, and headed to bed as she shouted at me all night long and even to the next morning. Please, ladies, if you can't handle your tea, just don't drink it. Okay, so let that be a warning. I just love that. That's great. So that's it. Tea is actually makes you much more violent than drinking beer, apparently, accordingly to this. So there we go.
And the other one was for taxi drivers, wasn't it? Taxi drivers, top tip. Why don't you use your indicators so then people know where you're going? That's a good one, isn't it?
I quite like cab drivers. Well, I like the London Black cab drivers, though. They're pretty good. They used to be. And there's this thing, I don't know if you've heard of it, Patrick, the thing called the Knowledge. Have you heard of this thing in London called the Knowledge? It still exists to this day. The Knowledge, no. Yes. So the Knowledge is an astonishing thing. It really is, actually. It's an amazing thing. They have to, those black cabs that you see in London, the drivers have to sit a test. And they've filmed it a couple of times. Have you seen any of that, Eric? You've seen them filming the test?
Yes. My neighbour he is an ex-London cab driver.
Yeah.
And he said that he had to do the Knowledge. And that what they had, these little mopeds used to go around. And they had to memorise all the streets of London. This is before the days of computers, obviously.
Yeah.
And also the cabs have to be in a presentable condition. And they have inspectors walking around London. And stopping cabs occasionally and inspecting them to see whether they are up to the standard. Very, very high standards. They have a cleanliness and they've got to be polished clean and spotlessly clean. Mm-hmm. So the regulations for cabs is quite incredible.
It is, and it's an amazing little vehicle because it's been designed to turn around in these really narrow streets of London. So it's got a very tight turning circle. You can sort of almost reverse it back in on itself. But the knowledge is a verbal test that they take. They sit down, and there's an examiner. I don't know how long it lasts, and they have to do it regularly to make sure that their brains are working. And the guy will say, "You're parked here." They'll give him a street, and you've got to get to so and so. How do you get there? And he's got to just literally tell you everything from his mind, as if he's got the map in his mind. I don't know if you've seen a map of London, but it's not like New York, right? It doesn't go all vertical and all horizontal. It's an absolute maze. It's a complete maze, right? And they do it. They can tell you, they can get you anywhere. This is before sat-nav. So I don't know if they ever used them in designing sat-navs, but I'm assuming they still have to sit down.
Is it just the city, or is it outer?
No, it's within London. It's to get within the borough of London. Yeah, the main thing, because that's really what they're used for. You know, people will hail a black cab. There's a lot of room in the back. Anybody who's not been in a black cab in London and has not had fun in a black cab, whatever your definition of fun is, has not lived. I mean, hopping on pub crawls in London, you know, in my younger days, getting the cab over to the other side of town and stuff was part of the whole event. You know, apart from which it gave you a break from drinking all the beer and worrying about all the tea that your wife had drunk at home before you know, how angry is my wife on the tea? But yeah, great. It's very impressive. So maybe I'll get a cab driver on here. We can actually quiz him live on air and see. That'd make for interesting listening. Not, but there you go.
But for the cab driver, I know that. But sorry, I didn't mean to talk across you. But to my neighbour, he said that those cabs were quite uncomfortable. With the old ones, the heating wasn't very good. When the later ones, the air conditioning, that wasn't very good either. It was all for the passengers and not very much for the driver. And because I know that piles are very common amongst drivers, cab drivers, who are sitting down all day. You know,
it's good how things sort of come back down to that part of the anatomy with you, Eric. It's great. There's no surprises there. Absolutely. No surprises there at all. Marvellous. Amazing. One of the things that's happened between last week's show and this week's show is the petition. You're aware of the petition, are you not, Eric? Yeah?
Yes, I'm aware, and I think it's 2.5 million now. That's the last I heard.
I'm not a petitionist. I don't sign petitions. I don't believe in them, of course. Neither does anybody else. And somebody rightfully said on the Telegram group that it was turkeys voting for Christmas, or maybe we should be saying turkeys voting for Thanksgiving, I suppose, would be more appropriate today, wouldn't it? But it's the sheer scale of it. It's off the charts, actually. It must be the biggest signed petition in British government history, I would have thought. It'd be touching close to 3 million now. I don't have the page anywhere in front of me, or do I? No, I don't at the moment. But it's kicking around somewhere. So someone has basically said the Labour government is crap and has lied about everything, getting it in sort of street language, and therefore we want another general election. Who says aye? And the thing's gone, it's not been up a week yet, but it's nearly at 3 million. Now, I think there is a positive in this, though, because of scale. I've talked about scale, really, with regards to getting organised a bank of the British people, you know. It's a pity they're not all voting for that. We'd like to pull out of the banking system and close all the private banks down and remove private ownership, and we want to own our own bank directly and have the government do what we tell them to do. Please sign below. Maybe I should put that up, really. So they're supposed to answer anyone above 10,000 signatures, and this has got nearly 3 million. What's encouraging is the scale of it. And, of course, if you look at X or anywhere across these platforms, there's an overwhelming aliveness and alertness in so many areas now to all of the complete nonsense that's taking place, which is basically cultural Marxism. That's what it is that we're looking at. It's cultural Marxism on steroids, and it's part of the Bezmenov demoralization process, but this time out in the public, with everything being decided in the wrong direction permanently all the time. So, you know, the idea of acquiring justice in a court of justice is becoming an alien concept. It's not occurring at all. Excuse me.
I wonder if we have a similar protocol that we can use here.
Have to have,
Patrick, you go first, Patrick. I'll bring you in, Eric. Patrick.
Okay, I was going to say, I wonder if they have a similar petition type formula that they can do here in America so that, say, the House or the Senate must debate an article, or at least present an article that's been petitioned by the public, over 1 million signers, and you get it read out in Congress.
Do you have one, or are you asking if you do have one? Do you? I'm
just asking out in the open, because I have no idea. I wish we did. That'd be kind of nice, because I remember hearing about how the Supreme Soviet voted to abolish itself back in 1990 or around that time, and that was the collapse of the Soviet Union.
Those cheeky little Soviet Unions. Of course, it wasn't at all, really, was it?
Well, I just wonder if they could do the same here and say, hey, let's abolish the U.S. Senate and get rid of the vice presidency and do a direct vote for president, no electoral college, direct primaries, get rid of the two-party system, and just have the House of Representatives.
I think the two-party system seems to be utterly unavoidable wherever you looked in so-called democratic countries, because it just polarizes like a football match. And whether you and I understand that there's no reason necessarily for it to polarize, that there are other views, because human beings, I guess, have been trained into a red or blue situation, because that's what you've got, that's what we've got, ostensibly here. I mean, independents in the States are completely negligible. Over here, they do nibble away. I mean, the Reform Party is being lined up as Conservatives 2.0, or is it 3.0? Oh, good gravy, I don't know what. It's
just another part of the Conservative Party, essentially.
Well, and they're not going to do anything about the core stuff. None of them, all of them, are communication cul-de-sacs. They are, they go a certain way.
And it's been exported to all of Europe, pretty much, the British system, I think. The national liberals.
Well, speaking of the pesky Brits, and me and Eric are not included in that classification. Neither are all the people listening to this show. No. We use Brits in commas, the guys in charge of it, many of whom are not British, as you well know. But a good article was posted also at my Telegram group. The Paul English Live Telegram group is producing some fantastic stuff. A shout out to everybody that contributes to that, because it's very lively. Lots of really intelligent posts and good stuff. I don't really have to go anywhere else now. It's lazy old me. But there was an article that had come out. Oh, actually, I've just found this thing. 2,879,873. So I don't think we'll go through the 3 million mark during this show. The rate of increase has gone down. Oh, there's another 6 to 879 now. I could just read the numbers out for the next hour, but that's going to make a bit dull, isn't it? Somebody had put a post up about the British, again, getting slightly too big for their boots with regards to a new regulatory coup. I'll read this to you. A new regulatory coup in the UK could give London regulators the power to interfere at the level of product design and to stop any tech acquisition anywhere for basically any reason they want. What does that remind you of? That's Bolshevism, isn't it? So it goes on, breaking it down a couple of points here. A newly minted UK regulator. Woohoo! Why don't we form a UK regulator, Eric? Can't we get the Fockham regulator in?
Excellent.
Fockham
regulator, that'd be good, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I'm chief regulator of the Fockham International, whatever it is. A newly minted UK regulator will soon be handed a raft of sweeping powers. Who's going to hand it to them? This is great. People just hand them. They just give you powers, lovely, that will allow it to subject American tech companies, this is why I brought it up, to aggressive legal interventions, right? A new ex-ante framework means that US tech companies will be forced, same as that big mincer that was on the other week about coming over to America to arrest you all, you must be quaking in your boots, will be forced to work with regulators at the level of product design. Companies face fines of up to 10% of global revenue for violations and up to 5% of global revenue for failing to cooperate with investigations. The new laws allow the UK government, whatever that is, to compel businesses and individuals abroad to produce information, including testimony and documentation, even in cases where A, the deal is not primarily UK related, B, the individuals in question are not UK nationals or residents, and C, the relevant documents are stored outside the UK. How about that? So there you go. They're going to interfere with product design and development and all that kind of stuff. It's to do with the tech sphere because they're very concerned. The article can be found over at piratewires.com. piratewires.com, with a fantastic image, actually, of John Bull with his mouth open. But I would suggest to you that other people other than the Brits are involved in this. Seriously. They really are. And I was looking up some of the people. So there's in this article here, I just want to give you his name somewhere, if I can just find it. Yeah, here we go. It says, blah, blah, blah. This May, the British Parliament passed, so this is, I guess, 6 months back, the Digital Markets Competition and Consumers Act. DM. Can you hear me? Or have I gone? Whoa.
Yeah,
you can.
hear, yeah.
I think Patrick.
I may have disconnected.
Oh, Patrick's disconnected himself. Are you back, Patrick? I think he's back. Well, you can hear me, Eric, can't you? And I think the signal's going out.
Yes. Can anybody else hear you? All right, they can, yeah.
Yeah, hang on. Right. Let me just go back and find the... I had to press so many buttons then. Oh, it was embarrassing. Let me just go back to that. He said, this May... Excuse me, cough, cough. The British Parliament passed the Digital Markets Competition. Well, I'm going to have to cough. There we go. Proper radio for you. This May, the British Parliament passed the Digital Markets Competition and Consumers Act, DMCC. Sounds lovely, that, doesn't it? Which gives the CMA, whatever that is, sweeping new powers over companies around the world. The law was shaped by a Harvard professor, an American turncoat, you are thinking, and former Obama official named James Furman, Furman, go look him up, who led, on Wikipedia, he's there, all right, who led the drafting of a UK report on competition law in 2019. Despite its provenance, or maybe because of it, it's evident from key parts of the law, namely the high revenue threshold that trigger its most decisive provisions, that the real target is American tech. What is American advisor, an Obama official, doing? Farting around over here, creating things to be punitive towards American tech companies. What's going on, I would suggest, is that the global control grid is already in place. We are living under it, whilst they are still furnishing us with the nonsensical idea that you might be able to have a national life with independent national decisions, which, of course, I would suggest is why everybody's here listening to this show. And if you're not, you're probably listening to the wrong show, because that's all I'm personally interested in for all nations, not just mine, but for all of them. Are you familiar with that, Eric? Have you heard of this little thing before?
No, I haven't come across it at all, But I mean, back to that referendum thing, what you was talking about, where we can actually vote on what was it now? There's up to, was it 2,000, almost 3,000 signatures on another government. I did hear that when he looked at it, Starmer may have to have a mass debate about this. So
yes,
that's quite interesting, isn't it? Yes,
he would. He would probably need, although he's probably having a lot of those already at the moment. I mean, certainly mentally, he was confronted on the bastion of truth, which was the morning breakfast show earlier this week, with some bint and a doodad bloke, asking completely fake questions of him. And of course, what do you expect from them? They're not capable of hearing anything that we say. I mean, Starmer is a Pabloist as well. A Pabloist was almost like an extreme version of a Trotskyite. And he's been that since 1988. So he's a moron, a Marxist moron of long standing, although maybe the Trotskyites hate Marx and all that kind of stuff. And part of the Pabloist ideology is the subjugation of farms and the use of immigration to destabilize nations for the introduction of equality everywhere, a condition that is unachievable and that is a lie, and that if you're pursuing it, you are mentally ill. You're literally mentally ill if you think equality is achievable, because God didn't design it that way, and God's in charge, not you arseholes. Oh, look, I swore, but it's true. It's absolutely true. Can't... every time I come across this, where people are going, well, we need equality, I'm going, well, there's a condition that no one's ever yet seen and ever will and can't exist. And do you want to go to the hospital? I mean, seriously, it's just not achievable. It's a condition. You could, in fact, I've said before, the universe, or this realm that we live in, this one, there are many, the one that we're currently living in, one of its ground rules is no equality, ever. It doesn't exist.
I agree with you. It doesn't exist, but you notice, I mean, if you look at, I used to take a particular interest, because I'm a bit weird like that, of these propaganda films that Mel churned out. And they did them in English, and excuse my language, they're bloody funny, some of them. There was one, they had a campaign against spitting, and you see this old boy walking along, and this young girl saying, "Grandpa, do not spit, it is wrong." And he said, "Thank you, young child, for putting me right." And it's so much, excuse my language, bullshit in it. It's hysterically funny. But that is the sort of communist way of doing things, and that is they live in cloud cuckoo land. I mean, I was talking to somebody who said that his local doctor's surgery, nobody can get an appointment, but they print a newsletter that they get posted to them. The money that must cost, so they can afford to do a newsletter full of all jolly, happy, lots of fear porn in it. Sort of, do you realize that you could catch this disease, that disease? Better have some toxins pumped into your arm and all that sort of stuff. But they can't get doctors to work there, and people can't get appointments. It's just completely crackpot. It's living in cloud cuckoo land. That's the real problem with communism. It is cloud cuckoo land.
Yeah. Actually, Eric, can you just hold that thought?
Yes.
So there's been some sort of transmission issue with Rumble, and I'm just checking it, and there has nothing here at this end. Bugger and drat, so they can't hear us. Let me just type something in. Let's see, stream issues. Reconnected.
I went downstairs and yelled at everybody at the party here and said, "Hey, stop using the internet. You're wasting my bandwidth. I'm trying to talk."
Yeah, hang on just a minute.
I didn't do that.
I'm just going to let everybody know. So I've just got to type something. Hang on, my fingers have gone all fat and silly.
Paul, by the way.
Yeah.
Tupper Saucy. He was a musician in the 60s. I found a single by him. I put it in our chat.
Oh, right. Okay. We'll have a Rulers of Evil single. Okay. So let me, sorry to everybody in Rumble. We didn't get a warning here. Actually, I see it now. But yeah, there was a drop of signal. I've cut off the feed to DLive. The internet is been playing up for everybody in so many different ways. So we're just, from a video platform, we're just going to Rumble right now. I've stopped it on DLive. We don't get anybody on DLive anyway. It's just me being a Ron hopeful of this world at the moment. So if that happens again, if for whatever reason the feed drops out to Rumble, head on over to radiosoapbox.com or head to wbn324.com. You'll find the links to the show in the Telegram post, and you'll be able to pick it up on WBN324. Courtesy of TalkStream Live. We're going out there at least for the next 30 minutes or so up until the top of the hour. So apologies for that. I don't know why I'm apologizing. It's just called the internet, and it's lots of fun. And it was lots of fun just then. Anyway, where were we before we were rudely interrupted with the stream going all pear-shaped and crap? I can't remember.
We was talking about Keir Starmer having a mass debate.
Yes, we were. Were. And him rebuffing. He's just dismissed this vote. 3 million. I mean, if it's 3 million, which it is nearly, that have actually done it, people like you and me, Eric, and many of the people here who would fully agree with it and don't do petitions because we think they're possibly spy stuff and all this. I reckon it's 10 times that amount. I reckon it's 10 times.
It's data gathering because you have to give your name and address on it. And to me, that's data gathering. And that's all they're interested in, data gathering.
Yeah, for further control, so nudging down the line.
And check out that. Yes. That's what, because my personal view, and people might laugh at this, but I actually think that the whole lot, even Putin, is in on this.
I'm with you.
Really?
I'm with you. Yeah, I just think the whole system is completely locked up.
I think they play both sides against each other.
Yeah.
Too. I think it's a matter of let's you and me fight.
Yeah.
Right? Let's you let's you and him fight. While I sit and watch you and him fight.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, what's this war in Ukraine been about? It's been destroying the youth of the Ukraine. And Putin was seen years ago in the World Economic Forum, wandering around. He was one of their a bright-eyed and bushy-tailed members.
Who was?
So Putin.
The WEF. The World Economic
Well, I've mentioned here before There's a lot of reports on Putin with regards to Richard Tomlinson from MI5, MI6, and Spycatcher and all that kind of stuff, and to do with trainings that they were giving. This is MI5, MI6 under Elizabeth Manningham Bulwer and all those, and John Scarlett. There was a training given at Power Gen, which is a big power gen. Well, was a big power generator. It says I'm probably being replaced by a windmill now or something. And in 1981, I think it was, there's a picture of him all young there. And the backstory to it was that he got involved because that was, the 80s were very bad in Russia as well, because it led up. It was when the things, it took 10 years or more for it to, slowly fall apart. At least that's what we're told. It could be the planned intentional destruction of it because of what's happened since, and I think that's highly likely in part. But his family was under pressure, and somebody from over here arranged for him through certain connections to get food to his family, so he was obligated at that time. I don't know. But the fact that there's a photograph of him very young, and that all these other graduates of this course talk about him, I'm sorry, but it's just all in there. And it's as if there's only one spy network in the world, and the spies are running the world, and have been for a long time. They're worth everything. They're the people that decide the fate of wars by leaking information to the enemy or not, as the case may be. So it's very difficult to safeguard national interests when probably every single nation is embedded with traitors. And they think they're doing a good thing, don't they? They think, well, the whole world's got to come together. It's all this, that, and the other.
Well, look at the Vietnam War. America was secretly talking to the communists, and they're keeping it going. And there's lots of things that could have happened that could have brought an early end to that war. And Nixon did try to do that, and that's why they had the Watergate crisis, because his name was sort of dragged like mud through the White House, because he brought an end to the Vietnam War when he should have done, because it's a sustainable
well, they're talking
war.
like
It's
Trump is the second Nixon.
It was a cull of the year. Yeah,
I've heard talk that it's parallel to what Nixon was going through with his second term and trying to end the war.
Yeah, they don't want the wars ending.
Well, if he does, they don't want that. That's the thing, you see. And I really do think that they like these youth culls. Vietnam, all that was the cull of the youth. And what did they get rid of? I mean, people that were rich, they got away.
They got rid of the best of the youth.
They did. They always do. The wars get rid of the best of the youth.
Yeah, and the worst of them get out of the draft.
Yep. So you're left with genetic detritus. I'm sorry to be so brutal about it, but that's how they will probably phrase it in their documents and reports. How do we get rid of the fit, healthy, intelligent ones? We inspire them to defend their country. Then we set it up so that during those wars, most of them get slaughtered on both sides. Then we're left with these dweebs that we can manipulate for the next level and just keep driving the quality of Western Christian life down to a nothing, which appears to be where we're kind of very close to being at, certainly in terms of...
what's interesting is that this talk from Netanyahu recently comparing himself to Dreyfus, the Dreyfus case in the late 1890s, which was the lead up to the...
So he can read books, can he, Netanyahu? Isn't he clever? What a clever boy.
Nutty knickers.
Similar thing though, getting people riled up in the ranks, and then saying, unfairness, and then everybody suddenly lines up. Oh, let's go to World War. Let's go on the trenches. They had the Russo-Japanese War, and that led to the First World War, and everybody lines up in the trenches. And it's a meat grinder at that point. It's just terrible.
Well, that's it. But Trump got out of the Vietnam War because he had problems with his heels, but he played squash.
Oh, that's right.
Strange.
Who had problems with his heels?
I haven't heard that story. Yeah. I haven't heard that story. I heard something though that he got out of the draft. Because he would have been perfect draft age, wouldn't he have?
It was the first.
Sorry about that. Stop that. There we go. Sorry about that. Yeah.
So, Eric, what do you know about Trump and the
lady.
draft?
My word.
She just came into the office. Said, "Get out, love. I'm busy doing a show. Bugger off. Thank you." There we go. It happens all the time, Eric. I think people don't know where I am. There's all these women outside banging on the studio door. It's outrageous.
Yeah. I'll get the same. Up a bloody ladder, tapping on the window. A young lad like myself.
I know. They say, "Do you know that Eric von Essex? He's lovely." He is. I'm going. Yes, oh my God!
Trump
buzz off.
You're part of that fuck 'em all. You're fuck 'em all trying to overthrow the world. Yeah, we're the new fuck 'em all world order. Absolutely. Yeah, we are. We are.
But did you know before when at the beginning of the World War II, a ship was sunk, and the name escapes me at the moment. I'm terribly sorry about that, folks, but it definitely happened. The first ship that was sunk mid-Atlantic by a U-boat, and it carried on board all the sons who were of conscription age or draft age from the aristocracy and MPs of this country. And Germany knew that, and they did it for a reason, and they stuffed it in the newspapers. But what it was is that America wasn't involved in the war at that point in 1939, and they were off to America. So it's all right to send other people's sons, but not their own. Isn't that interesting? And I'll try and find the name of that ship. I can't remember it offhand, but it was like and my father believed it was sunk for propaganda reasons because the Germans knew who was on there. They knew exactly who was on there. So, not only. I was going to say, not only Donald Trump got out of it, but also George Bush Jr. got out of it as well, didn't he? He got out of the draft because he was in the what's that equivalent of territorial army? What is it? National Guard.
National Guard. Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't go to Vietnam. Well, some did, but
yeah. Let's go to a musical break because it's 41 minutes past the hour, and I think traditionally that's when you go to a musical break. Of course, it isn't. But Patrick kindly found this song by Tupper Saucy. So if you caught the first part of the show, I was banging on about this book called Rulers of Evil by Tupper Saucy. It's a magnificent name. I know somebody says they thought it's made up. It's not. And he's a wonderful writer. He really is. Anyway, I mentioned he was a concert hall quality pianist. I don't know if he's playing the piano on this, but this is from 1969 Hits Archive. I've never heard this before, so everybody brace yourself. It's called Morning Girl, Neon Philharmonic. Here we go.
Morning girl, how'd you sleep last night? You're several ages older now. Your eyes have started showing how the little girl's growing now. Morning girl, was that you last night? Crying on the radio, begging for a way to go back where love wasn't jumbled so. Oh no, things are different now than they were before. You know love is more than kisses, a whole lot more. Morning girl, put your dreams away and read your box of Cheerios and powder puff that pretty nose and go out and find your man where the wild wind blows. Morning girl.
Well, well, well. And that wasn't Tupper Saucy singing. That was Don Grant singing. Never heard that before in my life. Might not listen to it again much. Don't know. Not too bad. Morning Girl. Tupper Saucy is credited with and on the sleeve as having arranged that and arranged the whole orchestral piece. So that's what he sounded like. I'm going to say that he's a better writer than he was an arranger of music, but that wasn't too bad. Anyway, it was a bit of a hit, apparently, in 1969. Do you remember it? Patrick, you wouldn't have been alive in 1969, would you?
No.
No.
I would have been a sparkle in my parents' eyes.
Paul would have been alive. He was probably quite old even by then, I think, in 1969. No, he probably wasn't alive either then, I guess.
I was 8 years old.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you were the guy that bought it. This is quite interesting. Yeah, so that's good.
No.
Vocal by Don Grant.
No, I would not have. No. And I'm in complete agreement with you that he's better at writing than arranging.
He is. Vocal by Don Grant, musicians from the Nashville Symphony Orchestra. So there you go. Nashville, obviously noted for country and western. But they also got a symphony orchestra, and they were pretty busy in 1969 recording that. So there you go. Morning Girl. So if you want a copy, answers on a postcard, please too. Blah, 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 blah. Now, where were we before that wonderful song turned up? Thanks for finding that,
We were
Patrick,
trying
by
to
the way.
figure out what happens when you play country music backwards.
Were we? Can you do such a thing?
Yeah. You get your job, your house, and your wife back.
Okay, time to get those reverse hits going and get it all good. Anyway, hopping around as I do, just going to throw us. Let's get back to what we were. But remember earlier I mentioned about a dairy and the Gates thing. The dairy is called. They're on X. They're called Pedigree Milk. And they put a tweet out recently. It says this: to our customers in Newcastle and Northumberland, that's the northeast of England, chaps and chapesses in the USA, Newcastle and Northumberland, you may have seen a major dairy company is trialing a product called Bovaer, Bovaer, produced by a Bill Gates company to solve the non-existent problem of cow burps. Apparently, they're saying it's a problem, but the Pedigree Milk people say it's non-existent. I'm with the Pedigree Milk people. They go on to say, we can assure you that our cows will never be fed unproven crap like this. Absolutely wonderful. So if you're up in that neck of the woods, look out for Pedigree Milk and go get your raw milk up there. It's going to end up in milk wars, is this? I can feel it. It's going to be all about the cow. Is going to be the symbol of our freedom. Maybe we need to get some cow spokesmen in here, and probably need to get some cow jingles with lots of mooing and farting, which you can't record because apparently they don't fart, and burping, and they don't, and that's not a problem either. And yeah, the moos would be good. Maybe everybody out there, maybe you could do an impersonation of a cow moo, post it into the Telegram group, and we'll play all of them for a few days, because I know you'll be all so keen to go or whatever, however you do it. So there we go. That's quite good. Who was that? Who was that? Confess. Hands up. That's somebody who's been around cows a lot. That is. That really is. The most, when we were kids, when I was young, when I was a wee lad, I lived right next to a cow field. When I say next to, I mean 40 yards away, literally. So come out of the house, go up the road, 10 yards, turn left, 30 yards, over a field full of cows. They used to burst onto the cricket pitch and provide fertilizer on the crease, which used to distress the cricketers considerably. They'd come back after the winter going, oh, God. And there were just cowpats everywhere because they used to come through. But on certain days, when cowpats are kind of, how should we call it, loose? Is that the right word? Am I being gentle using that word, Eric? A loose one? Yeah. Not one that's baked hard in the sun like a Frisbee, which we used to use as Frisbees when they were baked hard. But if you've ever taken a sand wedge, that's a golfing club, to one of those things, it produces a spectacular effect. It's really quite a thing. And we used to go playing cowpat golf. This is when we were about 8 or 9. And much to the chagrin of my mother, when I would come back, and she said, what are your trousers covered? Oh my God, get out of those now. I was just grinning. We were just covered in it. It was great. Particularly if your mates were downwind and you'd find one behind a bush and they would be walking along and then they'd just get completely, happy days, pelting each other with cow dung. You tell the kids of today, they won't believe you. But it was grand times. Anyway, where were we before I brought the cows in? Or do you want to stay on the cows?
Whenever we came across a cow pie in a field, we used it as the placement for small explosive ordnance disposal.
Did you?
Because if you put a firecracker in the middle of that baby, it looks like a bowl when it's done.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be anywhere near it when that firecracker goes off.
No.
Of course, the dung has to go somewhere.
I've noticed here in our markets that we started getting a lot of Irish butter, butter from cows in Ireland. And it's like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Why are they sending their butter here when they should be using it? We have tons of butter, and actually the price of butter has been going up and up, even though we should have real cheap butter prices and dairy prices. It seems like it's been planned that way so that then they can justify bringing in imports from other places. It's just ridiculous, though, when you think about it. And the taste isn't any better.
I paid over $5.50 for a dozen eggs and almost $6 for a pound of butter yesterday.
Yeah.
Yesterday.
Really?
Yeah. Well, it's like this Irish butter is supposedly grass-fed beef, beef or not beef, but cattle, and it's nothing compared to the nice light butter that we get here. It's just this heavier, dense, yellower stuff, and I know what grass-fed animals taste like and look like. And the tallow of it is, of a grass-fed beef versus, corn-fed. It's a lot more yellow with the grass-fed beef, and you get a lighter, whiter tallow from corn-fed.
Yeah.
And the same with the butter. It's got a lighter flavor. I actually prefer that kind of butter to the grass-fed myself.
Yeah, I suppose really we've been giving milk all the glory for the past few weeks, but we've never got round to his junior partner, the butter. But the butter's very important. I mean, I think the thing with butter is you really can't put enough of it on anything. It's just amazing.
Yeah,
stuff.
so I agree with you.
Yeah?
Yes, I 100% agree with it. Because if you have margarine, that's actually, close to plastic, isn't it?
It is.
But don't they make that from tallow? It's made from tallow originally, anyway. Yeah.
What, margarine?
But still, it's still not meant to be eaten like butter. Tallow, it doesn't really taste all that great compared to say like pork lard.
Yeah.
Margarine is one molecule away from plastic and shares 27 common ingredients with latex paint.
Well, if it's got soy in it, then yes. We have this stuff called plastisol that we have in our factory, and one of the main ingredient besides the powder is soy oil.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I totally see that.
What's the gun laws like though? Where you are, Patrick? I mean, I know that
it's pretty liberal.
Really?
It's fairly liberal. You can get a concealed carry permit fairly easily, even though you don't have.
You need a permit, I suppose.
But yeah, well, they give it out. They give you, and you just want one. You just go down to the local sheriff, and they fill out some form, and there you go. You can start carrying packing a pistol in your jacket if you wanted to.
Really?
New York, it's not so easy.
Yeah, well, in the bigger cities like Chicago and that sort of thing, it's hard to get them legally, but you can get them illegally, and there are like 50 murders a week practically in certain parts of Chicago.
Oh, that's nice. Nice round number. Easy to remember.
Well,
I can remember that.
I rounded up. Just imagine it. It is. I'm not joking either. It's terrible how that is set up, and yet it's one of the most restrictive of the cities for their gun laws. But it's right in the middle of the country. Everybody's driving through there. It's going from east to west, so you can't avoid people bringing stuff in from other states. And it's I think there's extremes of both sides of it. Like you have people who are just like, whoa, totally Second Amendment or death, the type of mentality, and I'm not like that, but I know that if I were raising my own livestock for butchering and slaughtering, I definitely want to have rifles around and guns, because it's the most humane way to slaughter an animal, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as defense, I don't really see a need to carry a gun for defense where I'm at. Maybe I should, I don't know, but because I'm pretty ignorant, I suppose, of the real crime that goes around. But yeah, I don't know. It's just not something that I'm big into. I've grew up around guns all my life, so and I own guns. It's not anything new. It's just,
Is it not the simple case, Patrick, that wherever concealed carry is allowed, you have the lowest incidence of death by gun?
Well, you probably would think twice about robbing somebody's home. Yeah, if you knew that there's a possibility that they're loaded for bear, you're not going to go to somebody's house and start looting.
Yeah.
So it's
just too late. It's too late. That you've all got guns. I don't know how many hundreds of millions there are. Everybody cries about it every now and again. It's the fact of life for you guys. That's it. You've grown up with a gun culture in a way that, well, we used to have guns. I think actually in England, if you sort yourself out, you can get them. I mean, this would explain my armory buried 50 feet below the house. Of course.
No, the 1924 Arms
They'll
Act
bulldoze the thing looking for them.
Quick, let's go over to Fockham Hall for a report on the 1920 Firearms Act. Eric, what were you about to say on that?
Well, what happened after the first, before and during the First World War, you could actually buy a gun in Britain quite easily, similar to the way you can in some states in America. I think Texas is about the most lenient. And then the government realised that there's all these armed men that were trained in firearms during World War I coming back to a country that was completely and utterly broken, and they'd actually been told a pack of lies, and of course they're rather militant. So they, shall we say,
Yes.
they did. So what they did, they quickly rushed through Parliament the 1920 Firearms Act, which stopped people buying firearms, and they've been strengthening it up ever since then. And then in 1921, inverted commas, a veterans organisation was started, which I believe was government controlled, and a marvelous piece of propaganda.
Same here, the NRA.
Yeah, and
we have this thing called the National Rifle Association that was started around World War II. Is a similar type of structure, where it's meant to bring in gun enthusiasts and
oh no, sorry,
Second Amendment,
but more veterans. No, we got nothing like that.
Yeah,
Sorry, Patrick.
same here.
No, what it was, they had a veterans association, but they didn't have guns. But it was like why it was like it projected an image of veterans, how it best suits governments. So it's a kind of propaganda thing, and it's supposed to be a kind of it's a charitable one. I won't mention its name because they got very good lawyers. But what I was going to say is that with rifles, I mean, you're not allowed handguns anymore. You can belong to a club, but I don't think you're allowed to take the rifles home. They've got to be locked away in that club. So to buy rifles is near impossible, even if you're a farmer. Very, very difficult. And they're even trying now. They've been for ages trying to stop crossbows. But of course, you can make your own crossbow. But they're trying to actually stop that because, of course, governments are very, very worried that if everybody was armed, they may not be there for very long.
It's tied to immigration too, isn't it? Because you wouldn't want a ton of immigrants coming in and suddenly they're armed. And, you're like a citizen, so you're a citizen, which comes with the right to bear arms in our country anyway. And it becomes quite easy then.
Switzerland has one of the most armed countries in the world, and they have the lowest crime rate.
Yeah.
Well, it's hard to get through the mountains too, though, for one thing.
Yeah.
The standing army.
Yeah, we'll carry on with this. I want to talk about how you can build your own siege engine at home. Let's get into that after this part. We're coming to the end of our time slot here at WBN. It's just coming up to the top of the hour. So that means it's just coming up to 5 Eastern. So we're going to wind up on our time slot here at WBN. We will, of course, be back next week when it won't be Thanksgiving Thursday, but we'll all give thanks that we're all still here because apparently they're going to blow the whole planet up any day now. And myself and probably Paul, Patrick and Eric will be back with you next Thursday. Also next Thursday, I think I'm guesting with George Hobbs earlier in the day. So that'll be going out on Soapbox and elsewhere. We'll be back. carrying on Rumble. After the break, you want to stay with us, go to paulenglishllive.com for the link. See you all next week. And we are clear. Welcome back. Gosh, you see, that was a seamless break, was it? Welcome back, Rumblers. So we're still on Rumble. We're still going out on Radio Soapbox. And so how do I build a siege engine, Eric? That's what I want to know. Doesn't every home should have one, right? We all need a siege engine.
What's a
siege?
siege?
Excellent idea.
Yeah. It's trebuchet.
Well, it's a big catapult thing, wasn't it? There's a name for it.
Trebuchet.
Trebuchet. That's right. Yes, because my sister had a
trebuchet.
problem with a dog keep coming into a garden from the neighbours and doing a big juicy poo in the middle of her lawn, you see, and then going back.
I'm glad we're back to our favourite topic. This is good. We've found our theme with this show, I can tell you. We've got yeah.
My sister, you see, she's got a fear of dogs. And well, both my sister and myself had a fear of dogs because my mother was bitten when she was young, and I think she passed that on to us. And I've worked hard to destroy that fear, This childish thing I had. But anyway, so I suggested make a trebuchet, and you could actually put the poo on that and then flick it back over the garden fence. And the trouble is they'd have, instead of a UFO, they'd have a UFS, unidentified flying ship, wouldn't they? Take pictures of it. Say, oh look, there's poo flying across the sky. Or blimey, that's a big pigeon. Or they might think the pterodactyls, is it pterodactyls, big flying ones, have come back and they're having a poo. So who knows?
Well, I thought you would. I didn't think you was going to call it a pterodactyl. I thought you would probably call it a turdadactyl or something like that.
Well, there was actually a dinosaur that ate porcupines. It was called a megasaurus.
It's called a what?
Sorry.
You've just frog. Say that again. A mega what?
A megasaurus. So, it ate porcupines.
God. Oh, I love this show. It's fantastic. Going back to gun laws, Idaho. Avatarian writes that he says in Idaho there are no laws. Open carry, concealed carry, both guaranteed by the state constitution. That's the place for me, I'll tell you. Absolutely marvellous. Wonderful.
Oh,
wow, I think they probably also have mountain lions.
That sounds like my kind of place.
I'm pretty sure they have wild animals that you have to deal with there. That's
wild. They're absolutely livid. Yeah. They do. They have bears, don't they? Yeah.
Well, it's near Yosemite.
Do
you have any wild animals where you are?
New York.
What's that? What's that, Paul?
And yet on the other side of the country, you have New York, where during the lockdown, excuse me, during the lockdown, a guy decided to pick up a hobby. So he ordered some parts like 80% lowers and receivers and things like that on the internet. And then he milled them, and he assembled his own firearms. And they broke down his door. They seized all of his toys, and they locked him up for, 9 years, something like that?
And put him in a factory making guns for the government for Ukraine, then, huh?
Well, he hadn't sold one or gifted one to anyone. He still had all of the parts. He could account for everything.
That was during the George Floyd thing, and the guy was black, and they made a big deal of it, him getting his guns taken away. I remember that vaguely. I couldn't tell you who the guy was, but
they gave him 9 years for having a hobby.
Yeah,
and engaging in it in his own private home.
Really?
Wow,
that's terrible.
Well, there's a comment from CC Paul that gun control, this is an obvious truth, worth stating, thanks for this, gun control is not about protecting us, it's about protecting them from us. But you're still in a position over there where you can actually do that. I think theoretically, probably in practice, we can do it over here. I know someone who's got the procedure for actually getting firearms over here, but it would be such a trickle that they'd just pick you off as you actually acquired them. That's really what they would do.
Well, wasn't part of the condition your police couldn't carry either? I mean, they probably do now, but
yeah, they've just turned into the world police force, tarting around with all these brightly lit cars and asserting their sort of authority through the graphic and visual display of their uniforms. Although many of them now have got arms that are like pipe cleaners, are 4'3" and speak with high pitched voices and won't last 2 minutes in a bar fight. And I think that's on purpose as well, because if someone is physically imposing and self-controlled as a policeman, they can, disperse 99% of incidents quite easily just by their mere presence. And that's fine. I want it like that. I think it should be like that. We're okay with a civilized police. And I think the original notes for the police force by Robert PEL were that it was supposed to be, all these things just go down the toilet, but the original intentions are always pretty good, that the police were supposed to be a kind of organized aspect of society as a whole, and that everybody was meant to participate in effectively upholding the law. Of course, that is now both theoretically and practically an impossibility given the millions of them that exist. So, the millions of laws have all been, they're kind of a symptom of their attempt continually to micromanage literally every aspect, like car parking spaces, Eric, that you were talking about earlier, and creating this anxiety. Everybody's breaking the law all the time. The people that get punished are just the ones they're going to pick on. Well, I bet you I've broken some. Everybody listening here is you're breaking some law right now. And if they sort of get uppity about it, they'll throw their weight about and go, oh, he once did this, so let's just prosecute him on the fact that he once had drawing pins at the age of 15 and that broke this law. And
you have to be good with negotiating skills to get out of that sort of thing, too, because that's a lost art as well. The parking tickets. I remember parking in the airport in the wrong spot, and I went to Florida and then came back, and they gave me this bill of just hundreds of dollars for parking where I had parked, and I'm like, wait a second, your signs aren't right. Sign isn't, and I just gave them all the little technical details, and they finally didn't want to deal with it. They're like, okay, just go. I don't want to deal with you. You just if you're dealing with people, you can at least get out of it that way, but. I know I feel for you.
Also,
and these police too. You get police here in our little town. There, they're women with pink hair, and it's like, what? No, how am I supposed to respect you as a cop when you're wearing pink hair? It's just ridiculous. There again, it's how you compose yourself in public. Kind of shows you the personality of the person you're dealing with, and how respectable they are. And it's like, how can you respect these people that look like they're gang members or, ravers? Go ahead, Eric.
Well, there's policemen over here that are covered in tattoos walking around.
Same. Yeah,
but also, under the English, not British, English Constitution, we have a right to bear arms. People don't realise that. That is the English Constitution. There's an English Constitution party saying that we have a right to bear arms in this country.
No one enforces it. It's the same here. It's great. You have a constitution.
What good is it? It's just, yeah.
Yeah, it's great to have a constitution, but what good is it if the people don't follow it or aren't moral enough to keep it? That was the whole deal. Was like you have a constitution as long as you have a moral people.
Yes, absolutely. It's if you haven't got a moral people or a people that have got the internal mechanisms, the internal faculties to understand why, then it is literally sheets of paper. And this is why when you admix different races with different internal operating systems, you get a proliferation of law to contain natural differences in a sort of bogus situation. There's all this pressure that just builds up. That's why I've maintained there's no such thing as a multicultural society. There's never, ever been one. Ever. There isn't one now. It's nonsense. You've got pockets of oil and water rotating around one another with people naturally wanting to go to their natural condition and state of being with their own, operating in an effective way, whatever that may be. And that doesn't preclude the idea of different races and groups interacting with one another commercially. But of course, the more commercially skilled, i.e. duplicitous, tend to pervert that as well. It requires all sorts of moral and ethical restraint, and certain peoples are not particularly good at that. I mean, I don't know what the Eskimos are like. They've never taken over the world, have they? But it's probably quite difficult for them up there. But I think that's all without a moral people, Patrick, you're absolutely right. You can't. What can you do? Not much, as the current world seems to be showing. Yeah.
Well,
by the way, what year did the founding fathers, when they came, Plymouth Rock? What year is that?
Oh, 16.
What?
Early 16. I know I should know this. It's American history, and I'm
1642,
American, but
1642 was it? Don't know.
Your guess is as good as mine. I mean, as far as 1600s, I think it's something like that.
Yeah.
When the Pilgrims landed on Plymouth Rock.
Well, I mentioned pre-show, Patrick.
Was that mystery, wasn't it?
Yeah, I don't. Somebody could look at. Somebody's probably fired the answer into the Rumble chat, so we can have a look. Maybe
1620.
1620.
1620.
Interesting. It's good getting these timelines because the East India Company was set up in 1600, so that's interesting to get that feel for it. But I mentioned, I think, Patrick, pre-show we were talking about the Roanoke. Have I pronounced that correctly? The Roanoke colony, Roanoke. And Wikipedia is fine on this. It is, I think. The Roanoke colony was an attempt by Sir Walter Raleigh, the chap that brought tobacco back to us here in England and created the cigarette smokers of the world, to found the first permanent English settlement in North America. The colony was founded in 1585. But when it was visited by a ship in 1590, the colonists had inexplicably disappeared. It has come to be known as the Lost Colony, and the fate of the 112 to 121 colonists remains unknown. I suspect it doesn't remain unknown, but it might remain unknown to Wikipedia at this moment that I'm looking at it. So it's apparently there was some kind of a massacre or a killing off of these colonists by some Indians. But then they're saying that this has been disproved. So it's all, I think they were trying to disprove that to justify the idea that it was us that it was white Europeans that wiped out all the Indians. But of course they didn't wipe out all the Indians. But it's Chief Powhatan, Powhatn, had ordered them killed, apparently. This is from the Encyclopedia Virginia. So I guess Roanoke's in Virginia. Is that right? Must have been, I guess.
Yeah, I think it also is a military base, if I'm not mistaken. There's a military base.
Yeah, well, they would have called it Virginia after the Virgin Queen, whatever that might mean. No one's ever knows anything about
Virgin
that.
Mary?
Virgin
Maryland is next door.
Well, it might have been of Elizabeth, you see, because Raleigh was under Elizabeth and she was known as the Virgin Queen, and that's why they would have called it Virginia. It says it was to establish a permanent North American settlement with the purpose of harassing Spanish shipping. Yes, good. Let's just be old-fashioned. Mining for gold and silver, discovering a passage to the Pacific Ocean, and Christianizing the Indians. Yeah, well, okay. I'll leave that to them.
Yeah, we had a lot of Jesuit missionaries that came in, and before that, and it's quite, the Columbus even technically, they say, he was there on a mission from the Spanish king and queen, or the king and queen of Portugal.
So it's that early, 1584, and they returned to England with some Algonquin-speaking Indians. Took two of them back to England, Manteo and Wanchese. I'm just using cheese because it's probably pronounced Wanchese or something, but it's Wanchese. Blah, 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 blah. They got a grant from Queen Elizabeth I to settle Virginia, so that's where the name comes from. Second voyage in 1585. Established a fortified camp at Roanoke Island. John White and Thomas Harriot accompanied explorations of the mainland and the Chesapeake Bay, creating maps, paintings, and descriptions of native culture. But after less than a year in America, and shortly after beheading the Indian chief, Pemisapan, the English abandoned the colony. They returned the next year, this time under White's leadership, and intending to settle in the Chesapeake. Instead, they reoccupied Roanoke. After White sailed to England to update Raleigh and obtain additional supplies, he was delayed by the Spanish Armada. Boo! By the time he returned in 1590, the colonists, including his granddaughter, Virginia Dare, had disappeared. Now, Virginia Dare, that would explain that website by Peter Brimelow.
Yeah.
Virginia Dare. Yeah, and as that disappeared now, they got prosecuted. Look, I'm hopping around. So anybody familiar with the Virginia Dare website and Peter Brimelow? I think that's how you pronounce his name.
Vidar, yeah, I remember.
Yeah, Vidar.
Didn't you used to broadcast some of his old his shows? The guy
May well have done, yeah. Or one of the guys there's a few sort of Anglos in there. Brimelow is an Anglo that's lived in America though for 40, 50 years, and the other guy that used to do a weekly podcast with him, and they're basically champions of your borders in very simple terms.
Right.
They're fully aware of the problems of uncontrolled immigration. That's putting it mildly. It's a highly intelligent site. But whoever was the mayor of New York has prosecuted them out of existence for whatever spurious reason, I believe.
Really? So recently?
Yeah,
Eric
I think
Adams?
so. Well, earlier this year they were doing an appeal to try and get funds in to fight certain things, and Brimelow made a very heartfelt appeal because they've been going for donkey's years for a long time, and they've got some very bright lads and lasses working there, and done a lot of really great work. It's a step up from the conversation here. I don't mean to demean they're more precise and detailed. It's less mass market.
But
they're doing a lot of deeper research. It's a very good source, for things.
They pick a topic and
yes,
and they're just stick with it. And
they do.
Story.
So you're celebrating an event that took place in 1621, but the pesky English were there in 1585. Walter Raleigh.
I have a relative, my grandpa, John LaFond was my grandpa's name, and he had a genealogy history of our family, the LaFond family in particular, that went back to at least the early 1600s, 1612, around that time. And they came in from France, his last name LaFond, so hence, French name. Came in and the first recorded one was this Pierre LaFond. Came in, married a native woman from the Huron tribe. And Huron is the name of a indigenous tribe near Lake Huron,
right?
And hence the name. But yeah, there were definitely French colonies all throughout the New World, in the north, particularly all through the Great Lakes. Like I was telling you before about the Jesuits, and a lot of them were French Jesuits that came in and. Basically came in and learned the Indian languages and codified them, and I have books on this on the different languages in this area that they had written down whole dictionaries and lexicons about these old documents that you can find, and it's fascinating just to see that there was a real history here before the American colonies and the 13 original colonies and all that kind of stuff.
Well, there's another English mariner called, I think it's John Cabot, Cabot, I think it is. He got there before Columbus, but many people got there before Cabot.
I think they did too.
They did. Yeah. They did. Yeah. And maybe when I've got round to reading it one day, we'll do a show about all the King Arthurs over here. This is courtesy of the work of Alan Wilson. Well, there's two. There's at least two King Arthurs. There's one that fought the Roman invasion, and there's another one later on about 700 AD. And he got killed in America. The second one got killed. There were boats left here about 700 AD. I haven't got the date exactly right, but it's around about that period. And there were 600 to 700 boats left. 600 to 700 left. The King Arthur was on there, and he got killed somewhere in Arkansas, really somewhere so you wouldn't imagine them to be. I'm serious. It's something like that. I've got to dig it up. I'll try and get it ready. Maybe not for next week, but now that it's in my head, I'll look it up.
Arthur of Arkansas.
Yeah, Arthur of Arkansas.
Like
yeah, and then they brought him back and they nearly all came back because their king had died, and he got a major burial over here, wherever it is. Much of the history, even of these islands, although we know a lot, it's really not. It's not the full thing. It's not the full works, and it's distorted. Wilson's very interesting because he's scathing about the English historians that fell in love with classical Rome. He's really scathing about them, and he pulls up an awful lot of evidence because sometimes these islands are portrayed as being just full of sort of daubed heathens and everything. That's not the case at all. This was a pretty advanced place. And I remember reading some story years ago about when Caesar came here. He was actually taken to Ireland. They took him over to Ireland and said, you can't come here. And they showed him certain things in Ireland and possibly in Wales, and they stopped. I mean, because, why did they stop, when they'd got this far? So It's all interlinked. I think it does dovetail into Thanksgiving Day. I think it's quite interesting to know who we think were the first people in America. There's actually Hebrew writing up on certain mountains.
They were Puritans.
Yeah.
Weren't they?
Well, they were. The ones that you're celebrating
were.
They were Puritans, yes.
Yeah, well, the Lincoln, the one that Lincoln memorialized with the Thanksgiving Day Proclamation.
That's right.
Yeah. That's who I'm thinking of. Which is interesting because I've been reading recently about the Puritans and how they're preceded by what I've come to find out are the Cathars. You've heard of the Cathars, and I think that was the preceding of the Puritans were these Cathars, because the name Cathar is actually a Greek word which means pure one, and which hence Puritan, and a lot of these. The Puritan sects came out of the same areas that the Cathars were, forced into through military conquest and whatnot. And supposedly they disappeared. They just disappeared? I don't think so.
No.
I think it continued on from everything that I'm reading. It's just a continuation of that whole struggle that was going on even way back in ancient times.
You should all dress up like Sir Walter Raleigh on Thanksgiving Day. Well, not the ladies, of course. And Avatarin points out that you've got Raleigh in you've got the town, haven't you? Raleigh in North Carolina, which is
Raleigh,
North
Carolina, yeah.
There you go. And Warren Ap Arthur writes, there were at least 6 kings of Britain named Arthur. Well, maybe 7, Warren, because you've got Arthur in your name too. So let's add another one to that. So we've got Warren Ap Arthur, and then we've got these other 6, these other nobodies floating around as well.
Well, there again, there would have been a King Arthur if Henry VIII's brother hadn't died before his father, because his older brother was Arthur, Henry VIII.
Yeah, and he nicked her wife,
he was actually married to Catherine of... He was originally married to Catherine of Aragon from Spain.
Why wasn't he called Darren? Yeah, see, why wasn't he called Darren? And why we had Queen Tracy? Darren and Tracy. Why have we had that?
We've never had a King Darren. We've never had a King Dennis either, have we?
No.
And we've not had a King Paul.
No.
We've never had a King Paul in England,
King
you know.
Eric.
I don't think it's about time. It's not a bad name, Paul, is it? It's a bit short, I suppose. A bit of a 4-letter word,
Eric
really, when
the
I think
Viking,
about it.
wasn't there?
Yeah, is that where you from?
Yeah, there was Eric
there
the
was.
Viking.
Eric, Eric Bloodaxe.
No, there was one.
Eric Bloodaxe, you mean? He was known that. He was known as Eric Bloodaxe up north.
Well, no. Well, no, there was one who he said, "Okay, men, let's rape all the men and kill all the women." And the fella said, "Not the wrong way round." He said, "You play it your way, Ducky. I'll play it mine."
Oh, that's Eric the Viking. Right, yes. That one. the one where all the records of his life are kept in the Fockham Hall Museum. That's the one that you're talking about?
Oh, that's the one. That's the
one.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, I think we're building up a good timeline here for the whole history of Fockham and Fockham Hall and all these departments. You've got research laboratories and everything. It's really looking good. It's looking quite impressive.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's good. I like it.
And what's your outpost now?
Zulu.
Patrick, I can't remember. Was it to do with the Zulu outpost?
No, it's Zulu Outpost 1 out in Wisconsin. Yeah.
Is it really?
Yep, Fockham Hall, Zulu Outpost.
Yes.
I don't know. It could be International Cheese Marketing Board because, you know, if anybody knows about cheese, it's got to be you, you know, so, yeah. Absolutely. That was it, Kentucky. No, I got it wrong. So Warren Ap Arthur's thanks, Warren. King Arthur II of Britain died in what is now called Kentucky in 579 AD. Yeah, that's it, got the dates right. It's about then.
Something about Kentucky.
It's a lovely word. Where does that, is it Kent? It must come from Kent, right? The county of Kent over here, right?
Could be.
I'm right next to Kent.
But then where do you get the yucky? Where does the yucky come from then?
Maybe they turned up and went, oh, this is a bit yucky. It's not like Kent. But they all came from Kent. They were all a bunch of dozy Kents.
It's famous for bourbon whiskey.
Eric?
Yeah. Excuse me zooming off, but I've got to get up early tomorrow morning, so I'll love and leave you all, and thank you very much.
You're cleaning out the Fockham Hall stables tomorrow morning, are you?
That's right. Yeah, I'm mucking out the pigs. War. So,
Eric, it's been lovely. It's been lovely having you here. Have a good early rise and a jolly good cup of English tea, and don't start shouting at anybody that's been drinking beer. And we'll see you again next week. And maybe I'll be.
I won't.
I'll be around in the halls of Fockham Hall over the weekend with you at some point or whatever on your shows.
Happy Thanksgiving, Eric. Even though you don't celebrate.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, and by the way, if you're interested, Sunday we're going to have the Number Man back on. So that's interesting. We're going to have Survival Steve back on, talking about numbers. So there we go. Also, we've got the Bowler Hat Farmer next Monday.
All right, okay.
So that's something.
Well, that's appropriate. Good. Talk about cow burps.
Anyway,
wonderful, Eric. That's great.
Anyway, cow burps. Anyway, thank you very much, and good night. I'll speak to you fellas. Well, you may come on the. Everyone's welcome on the show on Sunday. So
lovely. Okay. Well, that goes out on Radio Soapbox, everybody. So Sunday, 8 p.m. and Monday, 8 p.m. Soapbox picks up the audio feed from Eric's Rumble and YouTube shows accordingly. Of course, if you go in there, you can pitch in on the chat, which you probably will want to do, but it's just letting you know if you're driving your car in the middle of the night and you can't do things, you can tune into Radio Soapbox if you know how to do that kind of thing. And if you don't, find out. Cool. All right. Wonderful. Well, have a good time. I might be in touch anyway before Sunday, Eric, so keep good. Okay.
Bye.
Lots of love, mate. Bye for now. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.
Cool. Bye.
Bye, Eric.
Cool. All right. And then there were 3. Now I'm outnumbered, but this is good. Anyway, so, I just think, obviously Walter, and then we got to find out who came before Raleigh. As I said, there's a guy called John Cabot, who's before Columbus. So now what year's Columbus? 1400 and odd, isn't it? I don't know my dates.
1492. Columbus
1492.
sailed the ocean blue.
Okay. And there's a spectacular history set. Oh, gosh, and I can't remember his name. An amazing American historian who wrote about the West in the 1800s. There's a whole series of these books, and it covers a lot of this sort of material. And I shouldn't have mentioned it because I'm going to be racking my brains to try and remember his name. You can get them as PDFs. They're huge. There's about 7 or 8 of these books in his whole sort of documentation of the West and of all these sort of religious groups and interactions with Indians, very much in the early days, really before the Indian Wars, I guess. When are the Indian Wars? After the Civil War, the bulk of them, are they? 1870s?
No, the Indian Wars were... No, the Indian Wars preceded the American Revolution.
Oh, right.
The French and Indian Wars.
But you had them...
They were...
Oh, right. I thought they were rolling on for a long time. I thought they never really stopped until you actually got them all on reservations.
Well, maybe they never really did. I mean, they probably always had skirmishes and wars, more or less. But the main one was between the French and Indian, the British and the French, more or less, the colonists that were here. So, and you had factions of Indians that were loyal to the French and factions that were loyal to the British, and all depended on
bloody French.
Who paid whom.
Bloody French.
Yeah,
I know.
French.
Yeah, I know. Canada was a lot of
Quebecois.
I know.
Iroquois.
Well, that film, The Last of the Mohicans. Now, that's got the Hurons in it. Is that who you were referring to earlier? Huron, or was they?
Is it the Hurons? I've never seen the film. Shamefully, I've never read the book either.
Yeah, Fenimore Cooper,
Mohicans.
Isn't it? Yeah, Last of the Mohicans. There's only 3 of them. That's why it's the last of them. It's a pretty good tale, really. And of course, the historical backdrop is the Anglo-French wars on the border and in Canada and all that kind of stuff to get hold of that territory. So, yeah,
I know there's a Mel Gibson movie called The Patriot where it kind of goes into the fact that he was involved in the French and Indian Wars, and he wasn't going to be involved in any more war, so he became a pacifist, and then he Mel Gibson's character then decides after his son's been killed, he's going to have revenge on the British.
Too right.
Hollywood.
Bloody right. It's all, yeah. I mean, it's whether we get enough time to keep on reading the alternative or the additional history books. There is still that thing by John Williams, Legions of the Damned, I think it is, that no one's found a copy of, which is supposed to would be of tremendous value. This is a guy that was during the War of Independence, and I think he was on your side. I don't know who he served under, but it's about the true machinations of how all that was arranged. Because there's that speech, we've mentioned it before, from Cornwallis, General Cornwallis, when he surrenders to Washington. There's there's some kind of an essay where he's basically informing Washington. He says that in 200 years' time, you won't be in control of your country. He was quite okay with this, that, and the other.
Yeah. They make that in that film about the Patriot with the Cornwallis and Mel Gibson. That Cornwallis was like, you can't be going around. He's reprimanding one of his generals and saying, you can't be going around murdering innocent men and women and children, because after this war is done, we're going to be engaging in commerce with them. So
yes,
that's the long-term view. Was
commerce. It's all about commerce. It really is. It is.
Which, well, that's how people get along. You have to get along in commerce.
You do.
Should be strictly regulated.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Certain people should be excluded from commerce that have no business regulating things and speculating in markets where they shouldn't be, and that definitely needs tight regulation and smart people. But we've been all dumbed down to the point where nobody wants to talk about it because it's so boring. Oh, you got to talk about economics and banking.
Well, it's not really. I think it just requires the Hollywood treatment. And I don't mean the dumbing down Hollywood treatment, because not all Hollywood products used to be dumb. This is complete blather. It's far from it. And there's really amazing things you can do with movies that you can't, it's a unique medium unto itself. You can do amazing stuff with it if you want to. But I guess this century, ever since, what would you call it, the superheroification of movies, the Marvelification of it,
where they took the words out of the movies and it became action. Yeah,
it's just tiresome. It is. It's really, really dull. Actually, as complete counterpoint to that, you've heard of this series of novels by Hilary Mantel over here called Wolf Hall, about the life of Thomas Cromwell.
No.
Have you heard about these books?
Paul?
Yeah. Am I not there?
I don't know if Paul's here still. He might be on mute. But right. I've never heard of them. Tell me about it.
Well, I'm mentioning them for if you like that really, if you like English history stuff, and I'm saying this from a perception that there's an appeal of detailed English history to a certain American audience. I think there is, isn't there? What is it? Downton Abbey was tremendously popular over there. I found it really rather compelling as well. It was pretty good because it was written by a guy that really understood. Yeah, well, it's just written by a guy that knew that world really well, and I you just see what was going on. He's got a very, of course, it's about the rich, which is nice. Couldn't really write one about the poor because they'd just all be dying, from TB all the time. It'd be pretty miserable. But
the poor contribute to the rich, and so
don't we? Don't we just? Yeah, isn't that nice? Hilary Mantel has written a book called Wolf Hall. And she may have written sequels to it. I'm not that familiar with it. She's won a lot of prizes for it. It's a literary, I suppose it might be close to, say, a literary masterpiece or an extremely high-level novel. And it's about Henry VIII, but specifically it's about Thomas Cromwell, who works his way up and becomes an advisor to Henry. He's involved in that period with the split from the Church of Rome, the whole of the Reformation period. He was the son of a blacksmith. He became a lawyer. And I'm only saying this from having read the sleeve notes and the promos for years. I never got round to reading it. I don't have time really to read novels. But they've turned it into a TV series, in fact, 2 series. And the second one is currently airing. The latest episodes are going out right now. So I thought I ought to maybe try and watch one. So
what is it called again?
Wolf Hall.
WOLFF Hall?
Yeah, it's 2 words. Wolf, as in the animal. Yeah. WOLF.
Yeah.
Hall.
2015. Okay.
Yeah. And I watched the first episode of the first series last night and loved it. I just loved it. It's so quiet. There's very little music in it. It's like these old dramas that used to be produced in the 70s.
Sound effects.
And you slowly get drawn into the characters and the complexity of the life. And I've forgotten the name of the Catholic bishop right at the beginning. He's practically running England, but he's about to come to great grief because Henry is extremely distressed that he can't get this annulment from Catherine through the Pope. and Cromwell is his assistant. Wolsey, that's who I was thinking of. Cardinal Wolsey.
Yep.
And you begin to get an insight. She's a historian, so she really knows her stuff in terms of the detail it comes across. And it's the sheer authenticity of it, or at least I perceive it as that. Let's put it that way, and I do. And I'm willing to go with the flow. And it's about him being very calm and a very skilled lawyer and very courageous, certainly in the face of the king. He stops Henry going to war, and Henry's very cross with him. This is before he started to chop heads off left, right, and centre.
He's cross with whom? With Cromwell or with?
Yeah, he is. Henry VIII is cross with Cromwell because Cromwell stopped him invading France and dismissed what he'd done in France. He took an army over there, won a battle, came back, but Cromwell was massively unimpressed with this, certainly in this opening episode. And he's not happy with him about that. You're supposed to be impressed. And he said, it's a war we couldn't win. He said, when we went over there 300 years ago or whatever, 1100s, and had all these wars, Agincourt and all that, they already had supply lines set up so it could work. He said, we would be totally isolated and you'd only last 3 months and you get wiped out. And he's very sort of astute. That's the impact I have from just watching an hour of it. That's all. So I don't think he's a particularly likable character, Cromwell. He's an absolute manipulator and a schemer. He's the Goebbels of his day, maybe you could put it like that. But I might change my opinion as I watch more of it. That's just my first silly rank, impressions of it.
From what I've been hearing about Cromwell is when he went into Ireland, and basically he said the Irish are Amalek, so let's get rid of Amalek.
Yeah, he was mad. Yeah, he was. Yeah. Cromwell is. I'm not impressed, really.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing you have to look into is how did he win all those battles? Who armed? Where did the money come from to put all those pikes and for him to create the new model army, which is what it was called? Because it was of a different type. The army was of a different type. And they were armed to the gunnels. And it was Carvajal, the Spanish Jewish arms dealer, I think it was, that supplied everything, as he had been doing throughout Europe, and therefore you see the hidden hand again in this, which is why, in The Nameless War by Ramsay, he goes into this, because it's not really an English civil war, I would suggest. Also, you got these things called, what was it, the Settlers or something? I can't remember now. There's a group that basically is the first days of communism. So, the purposes that they're striving for are correct. And, they're about basically getting a fairer shake. But it's organised now by a third party, and therefore it takes a much more hellish direction. Whereas I've mentioned here before that the Peasants' Revolts, in 1380 or whatever it was, that's genuine. That's actually an uninterfered with a rebellion by the people. The only one I'm aware of on English soil. The rest of it, after that, they changed things so that couldn't happen again. But that's a genuine one. That genuinely took place in terms of the people just found leaders, and other people in villages have said enough. And that's a genuine uprising. There is no big, as far as I'm aware, I've got to read more about it, but as far as I'm aware today, that's the case. So I'm not vastly, deeply knowledgeable on that, but I think that's why I think Peasants' Revolt 2.0 is required. How that can be done, though, in today's surveillance society is if buts and maybes. It's they've learnt their art of micromanaging us through miscommunication and misdirection supremely. Of course, they've got all this technology available to them now to instantaneously shift attitudes in a matter of hours or minutes. Whereas before, things could build up in the outlying districts. They didn't know anything about it until the peasants really got super hacked off. Rightly so, as well. So there we go. Well, look, I think maybe we've come to a natural end. What do you think? Paul, are you still there? Got anything to say or no? I don't mind.
No. Wolf Hall.
Yes.
Appears to have completed the first season, and they are 3 or 4 episodes into the second season.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
No. And can you hear me, Paul?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can.
I cut out, so I couldn't hear the last 4 minutes of what you were saying. I apologize. I wanted to make a mention. We were talking about the Tupper Saucy book.
Yes.
And you had mentioned James Patrick Shannon as having done the foreword. I'd be really interested to read that because it reminded me of the time I went to China. Now, you may be wondering like why China? It's like kind of a strange story. My grandma had gone to church down near Hudson, Wisconsin, and there was a priest who was going to China. And he wanted someone to go with him that could help him because he was getting on in age, elderly, and but he wanted to go to Beijing. And my grandma told me about him and mentioned I should go with him, so I went with him to Beijing. And I remember him reading a book while I was, with him by James P. Shannon. It was called The Reluctant Dissenter.
Right.
And from 1998, and this Shannon was a Catholic bishop in the Archdiocese of Minneapolis-St. Paul.
Right.
That during the 60s they had the Second Vatican Council, and he got on NBC television and started saying, well, this is going to bring in changes. We're going to get women in as priests and birth control, and priests will be able to marry and all this stuff. And he said this on live television,
right,
making it seem like that's the Catholic Church's position on things, that they change their position on.
Yeah. Oh, well, I've just jumped back into it. I think I sent you. Didn't I send you a copy of the PDF? You've got one, haven't you? The whole book now.
I do.
Yeah,
Actually,
yeah, that's cool.
Come to think of it, I do. Yeah,
you do. You've got one.
I'll check that out. But that reminded me.
I'd be interested to know. Not that we
have
have to devote a whole show to it or anything, but as you go through it, in the weeks to come, if you want to bring things in from it, because it's a tremendous resource. But I'm just looking a bit here that's worth reading out. I think this is from the introductory bit, because these are good at the introductory bits because they give you a bit of context setting. So the gist of it was that Saucy had been brought up against the IRS for willfully not paying income tax. And it jumps on. He says, ultimately, a jury acquitted me of willfully failing to file income tax returns for 78 and 79, but not for 1977. And they found willfulness, and the higher courts upheld their verdict. It was only a misdemeanor. The last defendant in my district to be convicted of the same count had been sentenced to 6 weeks. But the court sentenced me to a full year, the maximum allowed by the statute. This was due to what the prosecutor called my unrepentance. Some say I should have wept crocodile tears and promised to mend my ways, but that would be game playing. By the way, this is the guy that did the arrangement of that song a little bit earlier. So he's really... How can you repent, of willfully failing to do something that was never required to be done in the first place? When I soberly reviewed the long list of prosecutorial absurdities, I decided that I was being punished for something not remotely connected to willfulness in filing tax returns. I was being punished for mobilizing what turned out to be the only constitutional issue no court in the United States will fully entertain: the money issue. This is the reason why I picked up the book. It just reminded me when I read that. Yeah. Okay, the money issue. Hello, everybody. We're back to it. But, like Eric likes to talk about certain things, I do like to come back to this one because I do see it as the base menace right at the heart of so much.
Can I want to read something from Wikipedia real quick about Saucy.
Yeah, please.
Saying about just after he had published it in 1999, The Rulers of Evil. It says, Saucy also expanded on his book's historical speculation later in alleging conspiracies about 9/11 being orchestrated by Dick Cheney and the Pope, whom Saucy calls, quote, the undersigned, undesignated de facto chairman of the United States Corporation, unquote. As Saucy writes, quote, 9/11 could only have been a ruse created by the American presidency to furnish a pretext for restricting the rights and property of Americans in order to redistribute American funds and forces to the Middle East and soon elsewhere, pursuant to the papacy's design.
Yep.
That's interesting because...
It is, because when you read the book as well, as you go through it, you'll change your thinking about what he said. I have to say that right now, because what he describes as the papacy is not what everybody thinks of it. It's of this compromise thing, which he goes into. about how
Have you ever heard?
it's got its own internal decay system, and that's the problem. But yes.
Yeah. Have you heard of the PNAC group?
Yes.
PNAC?
Yep.
Something for the
New American Century. Yep.
Project for the New American Century.
It. Yep.
Well, okay, back in 99 and 2000, I had gone to the Vatican to visit a friend of mine in the seminary there. And he was part of what's called the Pontifical North American College, which they called the PNAC. I just thought that very interesting that there's a similarity with the North American seminarians. The Brits have their own college, but the Americans have the Pontifical North American College, the PNAC.
Yeah.
Very strange. Yeah, I just wanted
as I'm reading these bits, I'm just reminded of what an amazing book it is. I can't wait to go through it. I would love to record it. But as I said, I can't remember the publisher. No, it's not. HarperCollins. They'd probably rip my legs out or something. I mean, I could write to them. They discontinued.
Yeah, they would.
The interesting thing about the book, Murdoch was the head of the company when it got published. Rupert Murdoch, right? And that's why the book is now worth £600 because they never published it again. They didn't want to. They stopped.
No, and that's interesting because I think HarperCollins was the one that did the David Kurtzer book that I had read recently about the popes against the Jews, the rights.
I've got a copy of that. I ordered it on your thing. I've not got around to it. It's in my book reading pile as well.
And that was written about in the same year, published in the same year, 99, as
very, very interesting. Isn't that interesting? Of course, Murdoch has paid allegiance to the Pope, has been in all those things. There's something strange going on. Can I read another little bit here? Let me just read another bit. It's just still connected on this money thing after that last sentence when he said the money issue. Of course, we call it around here the money power, but it's the same thing. He says, back in the late 70s, I discovered that constitutional government was contravening every American's right. I know this is not very Thanksgiving-y, but it is in a way. Was contravening every American's right to an economy free of fluctuating monetary values. I discovered the constitutional government was contravening every American's right, that's you and Paul Patrick in this conversation, to an economy free of fluctuating monetary values. I wrote a book, The Miracle on Main Street, Saving Yourself and America from Financial Ruin in 1980, in which I compared American money as mandated by the Constitution, gold and silver coin, with American money currently in use, notes, computer entries, and base metal tokens. Not only was the money in use inferior to constitutional money, but also it had been introduced without a constitutional amendment. Since our values were denominated in units of lawless money, we had become a lawless nation. Yup, same here, right? Quality of life follows quality of money. That nails it. That's a really good phrase. Quality of life follows quality of money. I've said here before, we are compelled to use a crap form of money. It's called interest-bearing debt money, and we've never been invited to participate in whether we wanted to use it or not. He goes on, he says, I urged the people to take the initiative in nudging government officials to restore the kind of monetary system established by the Constitution. The ultimate payoff would be a wholesome society. Yes, please. Main Street activism, that's what we have to get back to, would have worked a miracle. So Mom's Miracle on Main Street caught on very quickly. Activists began asserting economic rights in many creative ways. To assist and document their work, I launched the Main Street Journal, published more or less monthly, and the MSJ reported in detail the interesting, sometimes frightening consequences of economic rights activism. It's brilliant stuff. It's really. This is from his introduction to this book. So the context alone is worth the introductions are worth reading. It's a pity he's no longer with us, but he did have a good innings. I think he made 70 odd or something. Well, not too bad. But as I said, he'd been on the run for like 10 years or something, going into all these research libraries. And this book that he's produced is unlike any. It's one of those unique books. It's a bit like the Goebbels book I was mentioning recently. It's very distinctly itself, and not like any other book. This is the same. And if you are an inquirer into the true levels of the power structures that are warping everything, this book should be on your shelf. It really should. You need to get a copy. Just get it in PDF. You'll get it somewhere. In fact, I'll post it into the Telegram group after this show. I'll put the PDF in there for those that want it. If you're on the Telegram group, you'll be able to pick it up. But you'll be able to find it in online search as well. It's tremendous stuff. It really is. It's tremendous stuff. I'm just going down here. He says, I've just missed out a few paragraphs. He says, and so when the moment came, this is with the result of his 1 year's imprisonment, for me to pass through the prison camp gates, something got in the way. I can only call it a spirit, an irresistible spirit. It was the same spirit that had directed me to stand on the truth in my writing and speaking. It was the same spirit that had led me to interrogate John McCoon, this was his Jesuit prosecutor years ago, at our first encounter in the Marble Hallway back in 1984. The same spirit that had moved him to tell me he was a Jesuit. This spirit turned me away from the prison gate and led me into a fugitive lifestyle. And off he goes. And this book is the result of his fugitive lifestyle. It's, it's a great story. His life, how he's discovered all this stuff is great. And his discoveries and the way he puts it down is incredible. You'll discover a lot about the Borgias and the Medicis, who they really are, how they warped Catholicism for commercial control, the literal effect of Gutenberg's press, which was actually astonishing, really. And that's why they had to kill all these guys that were actually making the word of God available to people, because they discovered in it there was literally no scriptural acknowledgement of these powers that the Pope was claiming. It's just not in there. And so that's why it just kicked it all off. That printing press, lad, bloody hell. So there you go. Highly recommended, dear listeners, if you're into this sort of thing. If you're not, I'd love to think you might get into it. It's a challenging read because of the sheer detail that's in there, but that makes it all the more worthwhile to get stuck into it. And it's 352 pages long. Okay, so it's a medium-sized book. It's not a monster, but it's a good size, and it's crammed with all this information that he picked up over the years. So, yeah, it's cracking. Okay.
Yeah, I'll have to give it a read.
Yeah, cool.
Definitely,
Brilliant.
Definitely. Okay.
Well, I think that's it for today. It's not 3 hours, but it doesn't really matter. Oh, it's nearly 3 hours, isn't it? It's nearly 3 hours. Been great having Eric for the first bit. He departed about 25 minutes ago, something like that. And as he said, he'll be on live on Sunday evening, 8 p.m. in the UK, 3 p.m. US Eastern in the afternoon. That'll be on Soapbox and also on his channels. And if you want to find out when these things are going on, I guess the Paul English Telegram group is as good a place as any for now. As I said, we're getting some great contributions from people that are on there. So shout out to all of you and here in the chat tonight. Always good stuff. And Patrick, how much turkey have you got left to eat? What's going on for the rest of the day?
Oh, I'm going to have leftovers for the rest of the week and then some.
I love leftovers. Leftovers. Leftovers are better than firsts usually, aren't they? Don't you think?
Yeah, when you're hungry.
Oh, they're the best.
Tons of desserts too.
Oh, what's for dessert? Tell me.
Oh, cheesecake, like cranberry cheesecake, layer cakes, and
I hope
pumpkin
Paul's
pie.
not hearing this. Paul shouldn't be
next
hearing.
Thanksgiving, I'm going to his house.
Yeah, come here next. Yeah, if you come on, you can't be homeless on Thanksgiving. That's kind of the equivalent.
It's wrong.
Well, I mean,
I'm not
home is with people.
I ate Burger King for crying out loud. That doesn't make me homeless.
Pulled it. Well,
Makes me feel
you're one step toward
like
it. You're one step closer.
I don't know. So the Reluctant Dissenter. I've been looking for that book. It's not so much available.
Who's that by?
Yeah, I
Is
know
that
he had
the Reluctant
that was James
Dissenter.
Patrick Shannon.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
He ended up becoming laicized. He was a bishop, and then he was laicized, and then the next year he married a gal and lived out his years until I think 2003, and then passed away. But people in that area knew, like the priest that I'd gone to China with, probably knew this guy. So, yeah, quite interesting stuff.
We'll dig that one up for a future show, and we'll pull that in. I quite like making books kind of a part of the background chat that we have over these 2 or 3 hours when we can do it. And I've rediscovered my excitement about reading these things, particularly this one, because I've only read it the once and skimmed parts of it since then, but it's quite a thing. Anyway, I think I've sold it enough for tonight. So we're gonna wrap. I've got a little song here to play out with by Henry Mancini, "The Baby Elephant Walk." Why? Because I quite like it. It's a beautiful arrangement. So we'll see you all again same time next week, chaps and chapesses. For people in the States, have a wonderful rest of Thanksgiving. We'll try and join you lot in about a month's time when we do the Christmas thing, and we can have a bit of fun then. I don't know what day Christmas falls on this year. It's not Thursday. Amazing that. Yeah. Oh, is Thanksgiving always on Thursday? Or is it just always on the 28th? When is it?
Yeah, it's always the last Thanksgiving of the week.
So November is last Thursday of November, and when you have elections, first Tuesday of November. Yeah? That's how it works.
First Tuesday after the first Monday.
What?
Yeah, they're going to make it complicated. Yeah, the first Tuesday after the first Monday.
Yeah, okay. So over the Christmas, this show, if we run one, will be on Boxing Day. That's the
Wednesday.
26th.
Yeah, Boxing Day. Yep.
Yeah, we're on Boxing Day.
Day after Christmas.
Yeah, I don't have to broadcast on Christmas Day. I would do. I mean, why not? Okay, we're gonna play out with this little song. Thanks everyone in Rumble. As I said, we'll be back again next week. I've been joined by Patrick and Paul. Thanks, chaps, and for being here, and Eric, shout out to him, and we'll be popping up doing more and more things over the weeks to come. Stay good, be at peace, even if all the lunatics are doing their best to create as much war as possible. Bye for now.